Chapter 1293. Leap of Courage. It was a rare skill for shield warriors. It allowed them to jump up and attack targets on the ground from above. It was also a powerful displacement skill. After jumping out of the sea of fire, Universal Desolation grabbed the edges of the shield with both hands in midair and slammed it down toward Mingdu on the ground. Boom! Universal Desolation landed on the ground. The ground under his feet was smashed into a ravine, and a circle of seismic waves spread out. At the same time, Mingdu's figure flashed backward. However, Universal Desolation seemed to have known that Mingdu would flash. After landing, it didn't stop at all. It lowered its head and directly charged toward the top of the mountain. It was reasonable for Universal Desolation to charge toward the top of the mountain. After all, there was a sea of fire after getting up, and it was impossible for Mingdu to flash into the fire. Moreover, as long as it occupied the high ground at the top of the mountain, Mingdu would lose the advantage of suppression. Sure enough, as soon as Mingdu flashed to the ground, Universal Desolation had already charged not far away. Then, it raised its hand and taunted, and Mingdu was forcibly dragged into Universal Desolation's hands. From the moment Universal Desolation landed to the moment Mingdu was caught, it was like moving clouds and flowing water. Everything was done in one go, making the audience gasp in amazement at Universal Desolation's strength. After capturing Mingdu, Universal Desolation grabbed Mingdu's neck with one hand and lifted him up. Then, he smashed Mingdu heavily against the mountain wall. Bang! The mountain wall was smashed into pieces, and Mingdu was firmly stuck to the mountain wall. A mosquito coil appeared on his head. Universal Desolation raised its shield and smashed it fiercely. Poor Mingdu was directly smashed into a ball of white light and flew out of the ring. It couldn't be helped. No matter how low the attack of a shield warrior was, it was more than enough to fight a fragile mage who couldn't fight back. Moreover, Universal Desolation was not half a shield warrior. After Mingdu died, there was only one spot left for Team Motley Mob in the second round, and Team 9 States was the third player. It could be said that the second round was the best to highlight the comprehensive strength of a team. Team 9 States was still able to pull away from Team Motley Mob even though they had the high ground advantage. The beam of light continued to flash on the heads of Chuanjin players. After some selection, the last player of Team Motley Mob turned out to be Chun Xiang. Seeing Chun Xiang's appearance, Universal Desolation's heart skipped a beat. Due to the long history of the game, normal players might not know Chun Xiang's name. However, as someone who had interacted with the Quanjin sect many years ago, they knew better than anyone else how terrifying this perverted uncle was. Wuji was because he was cunning, Duga Xiao of Motley Chun, and Duga Xiaoling of Motley Motley. Wuji was chosen because he was cunning, Duga Xiaoling was chosen because she was beautiful, and Chun Xiang was chosen because he was strong. Before Wang Yu, Chun Xiang had always been Chuanjin's #1 expert. Moreover, the elders of Chuanjin had become so shameless and wretched because of Chun Xiang's imperceptible influence. Actually, Wang Yu's depravity was also caused by Chun Xiang. Therefore, Chun Xiang had the title of Master of Chuanjin. Putting aside the strength of the people of Chuanjin, just based on the insane nature of Chuanjin, Chun Xiang's terror could be seen. This was a creature at the level of a source of infection. Although Chun Xiang was old, not only did his wretched personality not restrain, it had become even more severe. Now that he had chosen the Warlock, the most wretched profession in the game, coupled with his formidable strength, even fierce people like Lakes and Four Seas were endlessly afraid of him. At the very least, Lakes and Four Seas did not have the slightest hope for Lakes and Four Seas. After all, not only in Rebirth, but also in most online games, poison attacks had always ignored defense. No matter how high Lakes and Four Seas' defense was, it would not be easy to win against Chun Xiang, a wretched warlock profession that could control poison and poison. Just as Lakes and Four Seas expected, once Chun Xiang entered the field, he rushed down the mountain towards Lakes and 8 Seas. Lakes and 8 Seas knew that Warlock's poison attacks were powerful. Seeing that Chun Xiang had taken the initiative to meet him, they hurriedly raised the shield in their hands. Chun Xiang laughed mischievously and stopped in his tracks. Then he raised his hand and threw a cloud of brown poisonous fog towards lakes and 8 seas. Although poison attacks ignore defense, it was the same for shields and other types of attacks. As long as the shield was not broken, it would not be able to harm the person behind the shield. However, when Chun Xiang's poisonous fog collided with lakes and 8 sea shield, it was not absorbed or blocked. Instead, it stuck to the surface of lakes and 8 sea shield and made hissing sounds. At the same time, white smoke rose from the lakes and 8 sea shield, and the shield's durability began to drop bit by bit. Corrosive poison. This corrosive poison was originally given to Chun Xiang by Wang Yu from the alchemist's chest. It was a special poison, and there was only one of it in the world. This poison did not cause any damage to players, but it could corrode equipment. F***CK. Lakes and 8 seas was scared out of its wits when it saw its precious shield's durability dropping. In the game, whether it was a professional expert or an ordinary player, equipment was the most precious thing to a player. A single death would only cost a player 10% of their experience. Even in a professional competition, they would only lose 1 point at most. However, if they lost their equipment, they would truly be screwed. This was especially true for shield warriors, who were a class that relied on equipment. The shield was the lifeblood of Universal 8 Desolation. It was a true asset. Universal 8 Desolation did not dare to be careless when it saw the shield's durability begin to drop. In a panic, it quickly put away the shield, took out a great sword, and charged at Chun Xiang. Although Chun Xiang's poison was terrifying, it was also very expensive to make. Chun Xiang had obtained the recipe for this poison half a year ago, but he had only managed to gather 3 copies. Seeing that Lakes and Lakes had put away the shield, Chun Xiang didn't need to continue using it. He smiled wretchedly and tapped his staff on the ground. A pool of pale yellow liquid appeared under Lakes and Lakes' feet. Poochie. Lakes and Lakes' feet sank, and he was immediately slowed down. His movement speed became like that of a snail. At this time, Chun Xiang raised his staff. Whoosh! Poison nova flew out of Chun Xiang's body and spread in all directions. Lakes and Lakes was immediately dyed green, and its health began to drop rapidly. This was the awkward situation when a shield warrior encountered a warlock. A warlock's poison attack completely ignored defense, and the speed at which they lost health was also based on percentage. In front of a warlock, a shield warrior's high health made no difference at all. Moreover, shield warriors' movement speed was slow, and they couldn't dodge warlock skills as freely as other classes. Now that they encountered a warlock with a high priority like Chun Xiang, they were at his mercy. If they chased, they definitely wouldn't be able to catch up. If they didn't chase, they would continue to lose health. Even if they wanted to run, they wouldn't be able to. The only thing they could do was stand there and wait for death. Chapter 1294. Seeing that Universal Desolation was knocked out of the ring by Chun Xiang, the members of the 9 States team asked angrily, "Are you stupid? Why did you put away your shield? What do you know?" Universal Desolation gloomily showed the attributes of the shield and said unhappily, "Do you think I want to die? If I didn't put it away, my shield would be gone." Seeing that the durability of Universal Desolation shield had dropped a lot, everyone was shocked. At the same time, the other members of the 9 States team who had not yet entered the ring looked at each other in horror. Damn, is there anything more terrible in the game than directly destroying other people's equipment? This old thing is not only wretched, but also so evil. While they were talking, the light column that selected the players to enter the ring fell. After a flash, the 4th player of the 9 States team, Smooth Talk, was teleported to the ring. Smooth Talk was a guy who liked to gossip. People who liked to gossip would always find ways to make big news. Once there was a little movement, he would run faster than a Western reporter. Therefore, his class was an assassin with extremely fast movement speed. Logically speaking, the assassin class in Rebirth was very strong in PK, restraining all classes except the tank class. The warlock's output was not high, and their skill release was slow. They were not suitable for 1v1, especially against this kind of agility class. Moreover, Chun Xiang did not have a strong AoE output skill like Mingdu's Thunderstorm. His chances of winning against an assassin who could go invisible were not high. As soon as the match began, Smooth Talk directly used stealth and disappeared from Chun Xiang's sight. Chun Xiang smiled faintly and rushed down the mountain again unhurriedly. The audience could not help but be surprised when they saw this. Damn, the Warlock was a cloth-armored long-range class with low physical defense. After being approached by an assassin, the result was no different from that of a mage. Chun Xiang should have retreated and pulled away from the opponent. Why did he take the initiative to meet the opponent? Could it be that he had gone mad? However, when Five Lakes 4Cs saw Chun Xiang doing this, he was shocked. The audience's thinking was actually correct. However, after the assassin went into stealth, Chun Xiang could not see the opponent's figure in the ring. Pulling away was easy to say, but difficult to do. Even if he wanted a kite, there must be a kite. The assassin, this kind of mysterious class, came and went without a trace. They had never heard of an assassin kiting. The space at the top of the mountain was so spacious. If assassins were to be placed there, the warlock profession would be at a disadvantage. But as Chun Xiang walked forward, the nature of the situation immediately changed. The terrain was used to restrict the opponent's movement. Relatively speaking, an assassin's positioning was much better than a slow-moving warlock's. There was only a narrow path from the foot of the mountain to the top of the mountain. In such a terrain, the speed of Slick was bound to be limited. Moreover, the mountain path was so narrow that Chun Xiang could casually toss down a darkness barrier to seal it off. If he chose to engage in melee combat with Exquisite in this kind of terrain, not only would his movement technique be suppressed, but it would also greatly increase the accuracy of his skills. Sure enough, the motley crew was a bunch of people who didn't play by the rules. The mountain peak was only a few dozen meters tall. For a character in a game, moving quickly would only take a dozen or so seconds. Under the gazes of the audience, the distance between Chun Xiang and Exquisite was closing. Just as the eight-faced Exquisite was less than 5 meters away from Chun Xiang, Chun Xiang suddenly stopped, turned around, and ran towards the top of the mountain. Seeing Chun Xiang's actions, the audience was dumbfounded. Could it be that this guy only remembered to pull away from his opponent after running all the way here? Exquisite also didn't understand why Chun Xiang suddenly turned around. However, the target was right in front of him, and it was facing him. How could Exquisite let Chun Xiang escape so easily? As a result, Exquisite didn't say anything else. He activated swift movement and pounced forward with a phantom image. The instant he sprinted, his speed was extremely fast. In an instant, he appeared behind Chun Xiang and stabbed him in the back with his dagger. Just as Chun Xiang was about to be stabbed half to death, a black barrier rose from the ground, perfectly blocking Chun Xiang and Exquisite's path. Duan, Slick bumped into the dark barrier and froze on the spot. At this moment, Chun Xiang turned around, a treacherous smile on his face. He pushed forward with his left hand, and a cloud of green poison gas was thrown at Exquisite's face. Exquisite was instantly poison green. Seeing this, the audience instantly fell silent. After a long time, everyone came to their senses. Their eyes widened as they exclaimed, F***CK? How is this possible? Warlock skills had a long cast time, and they couldn't be used as freely as mages. Even if an assassin wasn't invisible, it would be extremely difficult to accurately hit an assassin with his movement speed. Moreover, Exquisite had activated swift movement when he rushed forward. Chun Xiang's godly ability to predict was simply shocking. When members of Team 9 saw this, their eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. They stared at Chun Xiang on the stage and exclaimed, "This? What is this?" Could it be that he could see in all directions from the start? Everyone knew Exquisite's strength. Although he was slightly weaker than the other members of Team 9, he was still a top-tier professional. If Chun Xiang's black barrier had been a fraction faster, Exquisite would have been able to react and dodge in time. If he had been a fraction slower, he would have been able to stab Chun Xiang. But when Chun Xiang used his skill, he immediately froze exquisite. The accuracy of the skill was so high that even the members of Team 9 were shocked. It must be known that exquisite had been invisible from the start. Even if Chun Xiang had the anti-stealth skill, his detection range was no more than 5 meters. At such a close distance, any assassin would be able to stab him to death before he could activate his skill. However, Chun Xiang had accurately blocked the 8-faced exquisite lattice with a darkness barrier. It was clear that he had already activated the darkness barrier beforehand. The reason why he had retreated was to lure the 8-faced exquisite lattice into activating swift movement. The only explanation for Chun Xiang's behavior was that exquisite stealth was completely useless in front of him. Otherwise, no one would believe that anyone could cast a skill so accurately without seeing the opponent. No, you don't know. Five Lakes 4 Cs shook his head. Stealth must have worked. The reason why that old fellow could determine the position in all directions was because he had calculated it. That's why his prediction was so accurate. Calculated? When everyone heard this, they were slightly stunned and asked in confusion, "What do you mean?" Five Lakes 4 Cs said, "It's exactly what you understand." Hiss. Everyone carefully thought about Five Lakes 4 Cs words and instantly sucked in a breath of cold air. They could not help but exclaim, "You must be joking." Chapter 1295. If what Five Lakes 4 Cs said was true, Chun Xiang should have been calculating the distance between the two of them from the moment the 8-faced exquisite disappeared. At the same time, not only did he calculate the skill's activation time, but he also calculated the time it would take for the 8-faced exquisite to dash behind him. It was precisely because of this that he could cast the skill so accurately. Although this explanation was more reliable than stealth being completely ineffective against him, why did it sound so fantastical? He was AF * king human, not a calculator. If this was really the case, how strong was his calculation ability? Wouldn't he be able to calculate the orbit of a satellite with his bare hands? If humans had this level, what was the use of calculators? Little did they know that Chun Xiang never used calculators when he did engineering calculations. Such calculations were just a simple equation to Chun Xiang. It had to be said that when human potential was developed, it was not only people like Wang Yu who were all brawn and no muscle. It was not without reason that Chun Xiang was the #1 expert in Xuanzhen back then. Following that, the big screen began to replay the scene in slow motion. When the 9 States team finished watching it, they truly believed what Five Lakes 4 Cs said. They could not help but sigh. I didn't expect there to be such a strange person in this world. Boss, you clearly know how strong this old guy is. Why didn't you say so earlier? Five Lakes 4 Cs also said with a face full of disbelief, I've only heard of it before. Who would have thought that this guy could be so abnormal? It was not just the others. At this time, the people in Xuanzhen who were familiar with Chun Xiang were also dumbfounded. In the past, Chun Xiang had also performed a super high-end skill like determining position by hearing. However, compared to this, that special ability seemed child's play. As for Wang Yu, he exclaimed, Brother Chun is really amazing. If he practiced martial arts, he would definitely be a good seedling. TSK, Mingdu said disdainfully, I'm also quite fast in mental calculations. Oh, Wuji raised his eyebrows and said, What's 126 by 542? Mingdu blurted out, 84454. F***CK. So amazing? Wang Yu was shocked. Could it be that Mingdu also had this ability? Bullsh***. Wuji rolled his eyes and said, Your calculations are completely wrong. Mingdu said proudly, I only said that my mental calculation is fast. I didn't say that it's accurate. Everyone, get lost. While everyone was laughing and joking around, Exquisite's immobilizing effect on the stage had been lifted. Due to the poison from the spring excrement, the HP bar above his head had dropped by nearly a fifth. Currently, it was still dropping, and his movement speed had also been reduced by 30%. As the saying goes, the onlookers see the game more clearly than the players. After being tricked by Chun Xiang, Slick was not as surprised as the audience. Instead, he felt quite aggrieved. After regaining his freedom, Slick did not say a word. He raised his dagger and stabbed at Chun Xiang. Chun Xiang's control over people had always been a chain of events, from head to toe, from death to death. Even Slick, who was in stealth mode, could be accurately controlled. Moreover, Slick had just been immobilized and was now slowed down. Naturally, everything was under Chun Xiang's control. Chun Xiang calmly took a step back when he saw Tinkler charging at him. He put some distance between himself and Tinkler. Tinkler had only taken 2 steps when his feet sank, and he was entangled by a cluster of thorns. Once again, he was immobilized. Spring Soar unhurriedly cast 3 poison arrows and threw them at 8-faced Nimble. Although Slick couldn't move his feet, his hands were still very nimble. He casually raised his dagger and knocked away the 3 poison arrows. Then he gathered strength in his feet and jumped. Snap! With the sound of a rope snapping, Slick broke free of the thorns and jumped toward Chun Xiang. The dagger in his hand stabbed at Chun Xiang from top to bottom. Before Slick could land, Chun Xiang waved his staff, and his body turned into a cloud of black mist. Slick pierced through Chun Xiang's dagger and missed. Spring Xiang, who had turned into mist, floated not far away from Slick and landed in his human form. He opened his left hand, and a fierce cloud of poison swallowed Slick. Awakening. Heart-devouring poison. Although warlocks weren't damage output classes, heart-devouring poison was an awakening skill after all. Whoosh! The health bar above Slick's head dropped by a large chunk. Moreover, it was rapidly decreasing by 200 points per second in the poison mist. Slick finally had a taste of Chun Xiang's power. He knew that if this continued, he would lose without a doubt. Thus, he turned around and ran, intending to pull away from Chun Xiang. This map wasn't small. If he let the assassin run, Chun Xiang definitely wouldn't be able to catch up with him. Even if he couldn't win this match, he could at least drag out this terrifying opponent and perish together with him. The people of Qianjin always liked to scheme against others. How could Chun Xiang not know what Slick was thinking? How could he let him have his way so easily? Just as Slick was about to turn around and run, a dark barrier rose behind him. Slick's reaction was extremely fast. He hurriedly leaped backward in order to avoid crashing into the barrier of darkness. He leaped forward and extended his left hand, using the coiling silk technique. At the same time, a silver thread flew out from his wrist and flew diagonally above the mountain wall. Shadow step. Immediately after, Slick pulled on the silver thread in his hand and flew high into the air, passing through the dark barrier and flying to the other side. After escaping from Chun Xiang's poison mist, Slick's health bar stopped dropping. In that brief moment, Slick only had less than 1/10 of his health left. However, the distance between the two had increased by more than 10 meters. Slick had already escaped Chun Xiang's attack range. As long as he didn't go too far, Slick would be able to exhaust Chun Xiang to death. However, at that moment, Chun Xiang raised his hand and an evil spirit appeared not far from Slick. It raised its hand and sent an energy wave at Slick. The evil spirit's energy wave attack was the same as Chun Xiang's normal attack. It wasn't very powerful. When it hit Slick, it didn't hurt or tickle Slick, only losing a few hundred health. However, Slick only had 1/10 of his health left. He wouldn't be able to take a few hits, so he activated swift movement to escape. Trying to run? Chun Xiang coldly snorted and aimed his staff at the evil spirit not far away. Zla! An electric arc struck the evil spirit. 7445 egg damage number floated above the evil spirit's head. Immediately after, the electric arc passed through the evil spirit and struck Slick. 7411 egg damage number floated above Slick's head. Slick's expression was blank as he was struck by a white light. Shadow Moonlight. This was the damage output skill of Spring Xiang's staff. While moving and attacking, you will receive a charge of static electricity. When the charge reaches 100, your next attack will release all the static electricity, dealing magic damage to a maximum of 4 targets. Critical hits are possible. Although Chun Xiang added his points to vitality, a warlock was still a magic class. His basic magic damage, combined with the staff's own damage, would reach 7,000 plus after a critical hit. Chapter 1296. System Notification. Motley Crowd Team Chun Seong killed 9 Provinces Team's player, Slick, +1 point. Winning streak. Seeing that Chun Seong had killed 2 people in less than 10 minutes on stage, the audience was completely shocked. The players of 9 Provinces Team were all first-rate experts, known as the experts among experts. Their strength was on a completely different level compared to the players of other teams. On the other hand, Motley Crowd Team was just a grassroots team that got here through the qualifiers. Although Chiwanjin had some fame before, it was mostly a bad reputation. Unexpectedly, such a small team, besides Wang Yu's team of 3, also had such a strong guy. Among the hundreds of millions of players in Rebirth, there were only a few who could rival professional experts. However, Motley Crowd Team had 4 of them. This small team was really full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Now, 5 Lakes 4 Seas finally understood why Wuji's smile was so strange. With such an expert at the helm, not to mention Wuji's craftiness, even if they were to face Motley Crowd Team head-on, they might still have the confidence. Just when 5 Lakes 4 Seas was inwardly frightened, the light beam flashed and fell on 5 Lakes 4 Seas. With a flash of white light, 5 Lakes 4 Seas was sent to the arena as the 5th member of the 9 Regions team. 9 Provinces Team and Chiwanjin Team were different. In Chiwanjin Team, as long as they got along, it didn't matter who the boss was. In any case, everyone was playing together. The leader was just a title. Not only did the boss not have any privileges, but the boss was also responsible for buying the tickets. Naturally, everyone was happy to let Wuji, a guy who could cheat people and make money, be the leader. However, it wasn't hard to see from Netherworld Team that for a regular team like 9 Provinces Team, without a certain ability, it would be very difficult to be the leader. Rapid Thunder Division, this kind of paratrooper, would be pushed aside as a strategist, let alone a leader. Therefore, in terms of strength, 5 Lakes 4 Seas was at the top level among the experts of 9 Provinces Team. 5 Lakes 4 Seas was also very confident in his own ability. Although he had seen Chun Seong's ability before, in the eyes of 5 Lakes and 4 Seas, no matter how strong Chun Seong's calculation ability was, he could only predict. Such a method was just an unorthodox method and could not reach the top level. As for how to deal with it, 5 Lakes and 4 Seas had a well-thought-out plan. After 5 Lakes and 4 Seas entered the arena, Chun Seong was teleported back to the top of the mountain. Warlocks didn't have much of an advantage against mages. After all, the 2 classes' attack range was about the same. Not only did mages have crowd control, but they also dealt the highest damage out of all the classes. Naturally, warlocks were at a disadvantage against mages. At this moment, Chun Seong could only rely on his advantage in suppressing the enemy from a higher position to have an advantage in attack range. Currently, the scores of the 2 teams in the second round were already tied. 5 Lakes 4 Seas naturally wasn't willing to perish together with Chun Seong, so when the match began, they headed straight up the mountain. Chun Seong, on the other hand, was hiding behind a rock, pervertedly looking at the 5 Lakes and 4 Seas at the foot of the mountain. Because Chun Seong was above, the 5 Lakes and 4 Seas could not see Chun Seong. But Chun Seong knew the movements of the 5 Lakes and 4 Seas like the back of his hand. This was the greatest advantage of occupying the high ground. Seeing that the 5 Lakes and 4 Seas were getting closer and closer and was about to enter his attack range, Chun Seong quietly pointed his staff and released a dark boundary. The preparation time for the dark boundary was very long. Even with Chun Seong's equipment that reduced the preparation time, it still had 5 seconds of preparation time. After releasing the dark boundary, Chun Seong suddenly revealed his head and shot 3 oily green poison arrows towards the 5 Lakes and 4 Seas on the hillside. Poison arrows were the warlock's fastest ballistic skill. In the blink of an eye, they flew in front of the 5 Lakes and 4 Seas. 5 Lakes 4 Seas knew that Chun Seong released the poison arrow in order to suppress it and prevent it from moving forward. With 5 Lakes 4 Seas' personality, it naturally wouldn't let Chun Seong have his way, so it rolled forward and dodged Chun Seong's poison arrow. But at this moment, the 5 Lakes looked down and saw a black circle appear on the ground. Duong. The dark boundary rose. The 5 lakes and 4 seas had hit the boundary perfectly and was frozen on the spot. Hee. Chun Xiang laughed vulgarly. He condensed a cloud of poison fog and threw it on the 5 lakes and 4 seas. The poison fog quickly engulfed the 5 lakes and 4 seas. Crash! Only a shattering sound could be heard. The 5 lakes and 4 seas in the poison fog turned into fragments. Not good. It's ice shadow. When Chun Xiang saw this, he was shocked and hurriedly retreated without saying a word. However, when Chun Xiang reacted, it was already too late. The air not far from Chun Xiang distorted, and the 5 lakes and 4 seas appeared. He condensed the icebound spell and slapped it forward towards Chun Xiang. Swish! The absolute zero cold air hit Chun Xiang and directly froze him, turning him into an ice coffin with his head exposed. The 5 lakes and 4 seas smiled slightly and said in his heart, "Even if you're as smart as a ghost, you've still fallen into my hands." While thinking, the 5 lakes and 4 seas condensed an ice spear and stabbed at the head above the coffin. But when the 5 lakes and 4 seas saw the head above the coffin, he was stunned. Meow! It wasn't Chun Xiang that was frozen, but one of his evil spirits. The icebound spell had a high priority, but it was a single target attack. If Peaceful Ziyuan could block it with Aura Slash, then Chun Xiang's evil spirit could obviously block it as well. Before the 5 lakes and 4 seas could react, Chun Xiang had already wretchedly circled to the side of the coffin and raised his staff to cast Toxic Nova. Swish! A circle of poison fog spread from Chun Xiang's body. The 5 lakes and 4 seas were very quick-witted. After hearing the sound, he didn't even turn his head and directly flashed to the other side of the ice coffin, dodging Chun Xiang's Toxic Nova. After dodging Chun Xiang's skill, the 5 lakes and 4 seas secretly broke out in a cold sweat and couldn't help but exclaim, "Damn, this old guy is really hard to deal with." Mages only had a few movement skills. After fighting for a few rounds, the 5 lakes and 4 seas had already used all of his escape skills. It was the first time in history that 5 lakes was forced to this extent. At this time, Chun Xiang looked at the 5 lakes and 4 seas disappearing in front of him and was extremely surprised. Chun Xiang was as confident in his own calculation as Wang Yu was in his own martial arts. His 2 spells had clearly hit the opponent, but he had let the opponent escape. This was undoubtedly a huge blow to Chun Xiang. From this, it could be seen that the 5 lakes' reaction speed and the timing of his skills had reached the peak of perfection. Damn, as expected of a top-tier expert, he was just different from the others. Chapter 1297. Summoners and summoned creatures shared the same vision. The 9 evil spirits had 9 pairs of eyes, so Spring Soar could see Lake's 4 seas hiding behind the ice coffin. Withdraw. Spring Soar's staff fell, and the circle formed by the 9 evil spirits closed up, surrounding Lake's 4 seas inside, and then launched an attack. In fact, the attack power of these evil spirits was not high. Lake's 4 seas at full health had at least 70,000 to 80,000 health. In addition, cloth armor had higher magic resistance, so being surrounded by the evil spirits was not scary. What was scary was that these evil spirits had thick skin and flesh. The circle they formed directly trapped Lake's 4 seas inside, restricting Lake's 4 seas movement. Spring Soar, who was outside the circle, pointed his staff to the ground, and a pool of red poison appeared under Lake's 4 seas feet. Plague Spring Soar. This skill was the same as other warlock skills. It had low attack power, but it was extremely disgusting. It could greatly weaken the target's defense for a certain period of time. The reason why Lake's 4 seas could resist these evil spirits was because his magic resistance was high enough. If he was hit by this, he would probably be surrounded by a group of evil spirits in a few rounds and die. In the blink of an eye, without waiting for the plague effect to be added to his body, Lake's 4 seas lightly touched the ground with his staff and cast Ice Mirror. Magic class skills depended on damage output. Lake's 4 seas was a mage, so naturally, his damage output would not lose to Spring Soar. A blue light flashed on Lake's 4C's staff, and the power of ice spread out, freezing the plague's circle under his feet. Then, Lake's 4C's swung his left hand forward, and the ice spear in his hand flew out, stabbing into the head of one of the evil spirits. Ice Spear was a powerful single-target damage skill for ice mages. Its damage was extremely high, and in the hands of a great expert like Lake's 4C's, its power was even more extraordinary. Pooh! The ice spear directly pierced through the evil spirit's head, and the evil spirit exploded into a cloud of green mist on the spot. At the same time, Lake's 4C's jumped out of the encirclement, picked up the ice spear in the air, and suddenly looked down, shouting, "Ice Cage!" "Tututu!" Around the evil spirits, ice pillars shot out from the ground and surrounded them. Seeing this, Chunseong hurriedly commanded the evil spirits to run outside. When experts of this level exchange blows, it was all about who made the first move. Mage's casting speed was much faster than Warlock's, and Five Lakes 4C's was the one who made the first move. Of course, Chunseong couldn't make the first move even though he made the second move. Before the evil spirits could disperse, the ice cage had already risen. One of the evil spirits ran faster and was pierced by the rising icicle, hanging on the top of the icicle. The icicle's damage wasn't high, so it didn't kill the evil spirit instantly. However, seeing the evil spirit struggling on the icicle, everyone broke out in a cold sweat. Damn it, I might as well just stab it to death. The damage output of the warlock profession was too low. Spring Source position was also a control class, so his main damage output was on these evil spirits. After the evil spirits were all killed by Five Lakes 4C's, Chunseong no longer had any way to deal damage. They faced each other and threw skills at each other. As a mage, Five Lakes 4C's was naturally not afraid of Chunseong. After escaping the encirclement, Five Lakes 4C's did not attack Chunseong right away. Instead, he smiled and took 2 steps back. Voila! At this moment, a patch of thorny vines drilled out from the spot occupied by the Five Lakes and 4C's. How is this possible? Chunseong was stunned when he saw this. A surprised expression appeared on his face. He seemed to be in slight disbelief that Five Lakes 4C's had dodged his skill. Five Lakes 4C's laughed and said, Brother Chun's calculation ability is indeed incomparably accurate. Hearing this, Chunseong's face revealed an awkward expression. The audience was confused. What was the meaning of this? Since it was so accurate and could still be dodged, could it be that Five Lakes 4C's was provoking him? That couldn't be. Five Lakes 4C's wasn't that kind of character. Amateurs were always there to watch the show. Only the experts could understand the meaning behind Five Lakes 4C's words. Indeed, Chunseong's calculation was incomparably accurate, comparable to a computer. However, being too accurate and precise would become a fixed number. For an expert like Five Lakes 4C's, fixed numbers weren't difficult to deal with. What was difficult to deal with were the variables. If Chunseong was like the other members of the Quanjin sect, casting his techniques as he pleased and doing as he pleased, he would still be a little fearful because he couldn't figure out his moves. However, he was now casting his techniques after careful calculation. As long as he could see through his moves, it would be much easier to deal with him. For example, if Five Lakes 4C's had followed his subconscious actions and directly cast spells, Chunseong's entanglement of thorns would definitely have restrained him. However, Five Lakes 4C's had already anticipated this. He only needed to take a slight step back to easily break through Chunseong's method. Of course, this wasn't to say that Chunseong's accurate casting was not strong, but that his opponent was too strong. Being able to see through his opponent's every step was called anticipating the enemy's moves in martial arts. It required a thorough understanding of the opponent's class and skills to be able to do this. There were probably only a handful of people in the entire game who could do this. Unfortunately, Five Lakes 4C's was one of them. Ice Tornado, rise! Following Five Lakes 4C's chant, an ice tornado rose from under Chunseong's feet, whistling as it swept towards Chunseong. Ice Tornado was an AoE skill. Not only did it deal high damage, but it could also slow down targets within a 300 range. Its casting time was also extremely fast. It seemed that even though 5 Lakes 4 Seas had seen through Chun Xiang's moves, he was still quite afraid of Chun Xiang's strength. He raised his hand and used an AoE skill, not giving Chun Xiang any space to dodge. Ice mages didn't have as strong a damage output as thunder mages. Their main strategy was to freeze the enemy and then trample on them. Once Chun Xiang was slowed down, the initiative would completely fall into 5 Lakes 4 Seas' hands. At this moment, Chun Xiang naturally wouldn't just sit and wait for death. Just as the ice tornado swept towards Chun Xiang suddenly melted into a pool of blood, moving close to the ground towards 5 Lakes 4 Seas. Shadow Moon Blood Spring, using life force to transform into a pool of blood. The blood spring state ignored damage. This was the first time 5 Lakes 4 Seas had seen such a despicable skill. He hurriedly used Ice Mirror on the ground in an attempt to freeze Chun Xiang, who had turned into blood. Little did he know that Chun Xiang's skill was an invincible skill. Not to mention a mere Ice Mirror. Even an awakened skill wouldn't be able to harm Chun Xiang in the slightest. Under everyone's astonished gaze, Chun Xiang moved under 5 Lakes 4 Seas' feet. He suddenly stood up and transformed into his human form. He raised his staff and stabbed towards 5 Lakes 4 Seas' crotch. F***CK. Seeing this, 5 Lakes 4 Seas instantly recalled the pitiful appearance of the evil spirit that had been stabbed. Even if Chun Xiang's physical damage wasn't high, being stabbed in the crotch was still not a good experience. Thus, 5 Lakes 4 Seas hurriedly took a step back, barely dodging Chun Xiang's despicable attack. At this moment, Chun Xiang stood up, raised his staff, and smashed it. F***CK. A melee warlock? Chapter 1298. This wasn't because Chun Xiang had gone mad, but because he knew that he wasn't Lakes 4 Seas' opponent when casting from a distance. Right now, the most effective way Chun Xiang could think of was to fight Lakes 4 Seas in melee combat. After all, only by breaking Lakes 4 Seas' casting in melee combat could he make up for his disadvantage in technique. Chun Xiang had added points to vitality. Not only did he have thick skin, his weapon also had charge damage. If he swung his staff at close range, Chun Xiang was confident that he could kill Lakes 4 Seas. Of course, with Lakes 4 Seas standard, he had 100 ways to prevent melee classes from getting close. Chun Xiang, a mere warlock, naturally wouldn't be able to fight him in melee combat. Resistance Ring of Fire. Seeing that Chun Xiang wanted to fight him face-to-face, Lakes 4 Seas extended his left hand, and a ring of flames spread out, crashing into Chun Xiang's body. Resistance Ring of Fire was a skill that mages used to push away melee targets. Its damage wasn't high, but its priority was very high. Chun Xiang only felt a huge force coming at him, and he was directly pushed several meters away. Ice Tornado, Polar Storm, Bone-Chilling Cold. Without waiting for Chun Xiang to regain his footing, 5 Lakes 4 Seas pointed his staff at Chun Xiang and cast 3 skills in a row. Suddenly, ice dragons rose from the ground and engulfed Chun Xiang. Chun Xiang wanted to dodge, but his feet sank and he couldn't move. Chun Xiang was shocked. He quickly checked his attributes and discovered that he had been hit with a paralyzing effect. The audience was also astonished. These 3 skills were all common skills. Everyone knew the attributes of these 3 skills like the back of their hands, but they couldn't remember which skill had this effect. What amazing casting! At this moment, Mingdu looked at Lakes 4 Seas and couldn't help but let out a sigh. As long as ice skills were cast fast enough, the speed reduction effect would stack. If the speed reduction happened to stack to 60%, it would produce a paralyzing effect. However, it was extremely difficult to achieve this. Mingdu had once used this skill by chance, but he couldn't master it even after practicing many times. He didn't expect Lakes 4 Seas to be able to produce such an effect, as expected of the #1 expert in the world. Just in terms of technique, he was already above everyone else. The paralyzing effect was similar to the dizzy effect. They were both controlled. The paralyzed Chun Xiang couldn't fight back. Aurora Impact. Following 5 Lakes 4 Seas shout, the staff began to gather power and burst out with a dazzling light. Then, a white shockwave was released and exploded on Chunxiang's body. Although Chunxiang had added points to his vitality, he had already been hit by several of 5 Lakes 4 Seas skills. His HP had already been reduced by more than half. At this moment, no matter what, he could not withstand 5 Lakes 4 Seas Aurora Impact. Chunxiang didn't even have the strength to struggle before he was engulfed by the Aurora. He turned into a streak of white light and flew off the stage. System notification. 9 Provinces Team 5 Lakes 4 Seas has killed Motley Crowd Team's player Chunxiang. Points +1. The 9 Regions team won the second match with a score of 5-4. The audience in the arena was silent for a few seconds and then burst into enthusiastic applause. A battle between experts was always so exciting. Although Soaring Spring had lost, it was a glorious defeat. An expert like 5 Lakes 4 Seas had very few opponents in the gaming world. Soaring Spring was just a support class in a grassroots team. To be able to fight 5 Lakes 4 Seas to such an extent was already beyond everyone's expectations. No matter where it was, the strong would be respected. At this moment, Chunxiang was absolutely worthy of everyone's respect. 5 Lakes 4 Seas also secretly let out a long sigh of relief. Although 5 Lakes 4 Seas had never fought against an expert like Tranquil Xian, who was indifferent to fame and fortune, 5 Lakes 4 Seas knew that his strength was about the same as the two of them. Neither of them dared to say that they would definitely win. Having been in the professional circle for so long, this was the first time 5 Lakes 4 Seas had met such a difficult opponent like Chunxiang. Moreover, his opponent was only a warlock. If Chunxiang was a mage, it would be hard to tell who would win this match. Brother Chun, awesome. After Chunxiang was teleported to the stage, everyone from Xuanjin surrounded him and gave him a heartfelt thumbs up. This time, everyone wasn't joking. They were completely impressed by Chunxiang. It had to be known that this group of people from Xuanjin always had their eyes on the top of their heads. They rarely admired anyone. In the past, the only person who could be admired by this group of people was Wang Yu. Now, there was another Chunxiang. Everyone had witnessed the strength of the 5 Lakes and 4 Seas. No matter how arrogant the Quanjin cultivators were, they knew that they wouldn't be able to fight him to this extent. Even a place one's pride, who loved to talk back to Chunxiang the most, was unconvinced by Chunxiang. If Brother Chun was a mage, you definitely wouldn't lose to that guy. You can't say that. Chunxiang shook his head. There is no strongest class, only the most suitable class. If I was a mage, I probably wouldn't even be able to last 2 rounds. That guy isn't just your average level of strength. It seemed that after this match, Chunxiang was completely convinced by 5 Lakes 4 Seas. The second match ended. Both teams logged out of the game and returned to their resting rooms. Next up was the last match of the Pro League. It was also the match that the audience and readers were most looking forward to. Currently, the scores of both teams were tied. However, only the soles of one's feet would know if there was sand in one's shoes. Everyone from Xuanjin knew their own limits. The team competition wasn't just a competition of tactics. It was also a competition of overall strength. There was no need to talk about Xuanjin. The polarization of strength was extremely serious. There were high and low, and, on average, the overall strength was only SOSO. However, everyone from 9 provinces was a top-notch expert. Their overall strength was extremely strong. Even a ruthless person like evildoers Run Wild had been defeated by them. It would be a lie to say that they weren't nervous when facing such a strong team. Once they returned to the resting room, Mingdu and the others gathered beside Wuji and asked nervously, "How should we play the next match?" Hee. Wuji chuckled and said, "Let's play whatever we want. The choice of the map isn't in our hands. The initiative is still in the hands of 5 Lakes 4 Seas." Hee. Hearing Wuji's words, Wang Yu raised his eyebrows and said, "It seems that you already have an idea." Wuji said faintly, "I have an idea, but there will always be some accidents. If 5 Lakes 4 Seas chooses the map according to my idea, we still have a certain chance of winning." "According to your idea?" Mingdu stretched out his hand and pressed on Wuji's forehead and said, "You don't have a fever. Why are you talking nonsense?" "Meow. This is a competition. It's not nonsense. Let the opponent choose according to your idea. Why are you so thick-skinned? What do you know?" Wuji waved his hand and slapped Mingdu's hand to the side. He said, "When fighting against the enemy, the most important thing is to attack the enemy's heart. Attack the enemy's strategy, understand? Attack your sister." Mingdu curled his lips. "TSK," Wuji said disdainfully. "There's only a sister-in-law, and she's been snatched away." Bao San silently clenched his fist. Chapter 1299. In the other lounge, the members of Team 9 States were not as calm as they imagined. For many years, Team 9 States had always been one level ahead of the other teams. They had never met an opponent like this motley crew. At this time, everyone was very excited, especially 5 Lakes 4 Seas. After exchanging blows with Chun Xiang, 5 Lakes 4 Seas' fear of the motley crew's strength deepened. Originally, 5 Lakes 4 Seas thought that the opponent only had 3 experts. As long as they had the right tactics, this match would not be difficult. But now, there was Chun Xiang, which gave 5 Lakes 4 Seas a headache. Although there was only a difference of 1 person between 3 experts and 4 experts, the difference in nature was huge. In terms of tactics, when the number of experts was close to half, they could make up for the gap of the other half. This was the so-called 1 carrying 1. Even though Radiant Do's strength was slightly weaker, he was still at the level of an expert. Coincidentally, he was more than half of them. Moreover, Chun Xiang's class was a support player. It should be known that the most terrifying thing in a team battle was not damage output, but control. No matter how high the damage output was, if it could not hit the opponent, it was useless. However, control could firmly control the rhythm of the battle. Those who controlled the rhythm of the battle could control the entire battlefield. Therefore, if it was only Wang Yu and a few other damage output professions, 5 Lakes 4 Seas was confident that he could deal with them. But if there was another Chun Xiang, 5 Lakes 4 Seas would have a headache. After all, in terms of tactics, 5 Lakes 4 Seas had a shadow over Wuji. In the past, so many people from 3 Fiend Village were played by Wuji. Now, in this kind of small team battle, 5 Lakes 4 Seas couldn't guarantee that he would be a match for Wuji in terms of tactics. "Boss, do you have any tactics for the next match?" Seeing that 5 Lakes 4 Seas didn't say a word after returning to the lounge, 3 Mountains 5 Seas couldn't help but ask. 5 Lakes 4 Seas pondered for a moment and said, "For the last match, we should start from our advantage." Everyone in Team 9 States was speechless. Our advantage? Personal strength? Big brother, this is a team battle. It's not strength, it's the setting. 5 Lakes 4 Seas said, "We chose the setting for the last match. This is our geographical advantage." Sure enough, all pro players were the same. When they weren't confident of defeating their opponents, they would try to win using the environment as much as possible. This was the instinct of every pro player. 5 Lakes 4 Seas knew that he might not be able to beat Wuji in terms of tactics, so he decided to start with the map. Scenario? The 3 Mountains 5 Peaks thought for a moment before asking, "Which one do you think is more advantageous?" "Hasn't everyone seen it already?" 5 Lakes 4 Seas laughed. "Why didn't we pull apart the score in the last match?" The previous match, the 3 Mountains 5 Peaks came to a realization. "Are you talking about the Watchman Peak?" "Not bad." 5 Lakes 4 Seas nodded faintly. Watch Peak was a highland terrain with only a narrow path from the bottom to the top. Long-range classes would have a higher vision and range, which would allow them to easily suppress their opponents. In the last few matches, Chun Xiang was the only one who had more technical content. The reason why the others were able to score was because of their high ground suppression advantage. In the setting of Rebirth, the home team spawn point would be on the top of the mountain. In the last match, the Motley Crowd team was the home team, so they had the high ground advantage. In the next match, the home team would be the 9 States team, so the high ground advantage would be transferred to the 9 States team. In such a terrain, the Motley Crowd team's amateur-level strength could still defeat the strong. The 9 States team's top players had the advantage of the right time, the right place, and the right people, so there was no reason for them to lose. After hearing 5 lakes, 4 seas words, the 9 states team members instantly understood what 5 lakes meant. The 3 mountains, 5 peaks understood and smiled proudly. Haha, giving them a taste of their own medicine. Boss is indeed powerful. Those guys definitely wouldn't have thought that we would use their own methods to defeat them. Haha, third brother is right. The others all agreed. 5 lakes, 4 seas was feeling smug from the praise, and he also revealed a proud expression. After the break, the 2 teams returned to the arena. The 9 states team chose the map. After walking forward to choose, 5 lakes, 4 seas chose the Watchman Peak again. In the Pro League, the same map did not require 2 matches. 5 lakes, 4 seas choosing the Watchman Peak was definitely beyond the audience's expectations. The audience could not help but exclaim, giving them a taste of their own medicine, as expected of the 9 states team. However, when Wuji saw that the battlefield did not change, he was not surprised at all. Instead, he smiled. F***CK. This group of shameless people. Mingdu exclaimed, he copied us. I object. The referee replied decisively. Objection invalid. The audience was amused. What the F***CK? The map is fixed. I'll use it after you use it. Copy your sister. F***CK. If not for the fear of getting a red card, Mingdu might have cursed. Wuji hurriedly comforted. Don't be nervous. Everything is under control. Bullsh***. Mingdu said anxiously, it's not like you don't know the advantage of the high ground. If they occupy the top of the mountain, do you think we can still win? Mingdu had tasted the sweetness of victory. After all, with his strength, he defeated the 2 noobs with his geographical advantage. Therefore, he had an inexplicable attachment to the high ground. Chun Xiang also touched his chin and said, yeah, Wuji, as long as they occupy the high ground, they will basically win. Humph, Wuji said with a smile. Brother Chun, have you read the 3 Kingdoms? Yes. Chun Xiang nodded. Masu thought so too. Wuji said. Chun Xiang, damn, Masu's strategy back then wasn't wrong. He just neglected the water source. Could he trap them for a few months in the game? Although Chun Xiang had a lot of curses in his mind, he also understood that Wuji always had his own ideas and liked to be mysterious. He must have his reasons for doing so. If Wuji's strategy didn't work, the others definitely couldn't come up with any better ideas. Now, he could only follow the leader's decision. With a flash of light, both teams were teleported into the arena. It was the second time they entered the Watch Peak map. Chun Xiang and the others felt like it was a lifetime ago. In the last match, I stood on the top of the mountain and looked at you. In this match, you stood on the top of the mountain and looked at me. Looking at the 5 lakes and 4 seas who were deploying their formations on the top of the mountain, Chun Xiang couldn't help but sigh. Wuji, stop keeping us in suspense. Tell us how we can attack. Hee hee. Chapter 1300. The Way Up the Mountain. Hearing this, everyone quickly looked up the mountain and saw that the 9 states battle team had already set up a defensive line at the top of the mountain. In this match, the 9 states battle team only had 4 main classes: 3 archers, 3 mages, 2 priests, and 2 warriors. Long-range classes with defensive classes. There were no assault-type classes like control players and assassins. Such a configuration was obviously defensive. It seemed that the 9 states battle team was determined to defend the top of the mountain. They actually changed their usual offensive and defensive formation. Blocking the mountain path were 6 directions, 8 desolation, and 4 directions warriors. These 2 people stood on the left and right side, blocking more than half of the mountain path. The 9 states battle team's terrain itself was high and had the advantage of suppression. At this moment, the narrow mountain path was like one man holding the pass. With their current powerful output configuration of 3 archers and 3 mages, as long as the priest could heal, it would be a piece of cake for them to stop hundreds or thousands of people with such a formation, let alone a mere battle team. The 5 directions, 4 seas battle team knew that they were no match for Wuji in terms of tactics. If they were to deal with a motley crew, they would most likely be tricked badly. Therefore, They simply used this formation. Anyway, there was only one path up the mountain. If they wanted to rush up, they would have to fight head-on with the 9 States battle team on the top of the mountain. If they fought head-on, the 9 States battle team would have the advantage of time, place, and people. The motley crew would probably be wiped out before they could even climb up the mountain. Although the motley crew was not as strong as the 9 States battle team, they were still experts. Of course, they could see the intentions of the 5 directions, 4 seas. Hearing Wuji's words, everyone couldn't help but pout. Go up this path? Are you saying that we were going to die? Hee hee. Unexpectedly, Wuji chuckled and said lightly, the path in front of us is not the only path. Oh, everyone looked around and asked in bewilderment, isn't there only one path in Watchman Peak? Wuji rubbed his chin and said a very philosophical sentence with a smile. There are no paths in the world. When more people walk it, it becomes a path. Seeing that Wuji was still pretending to be pretentious in such a situation, everyone said unhappily, don't talk nonsense. Help the author to lower the word count. Hurry up and tell us, where's the other way out? Wuji laughed. Have you forgotten that you can fly? With Wuji's reminder, everyone came to a realization. Humans would always look at things that were out of reach and ignore their own advantages. Looking at the path in front of them, they actually forgot that they still had their cloaks. But Chun Xiang glanced at the members of the 9 provinces battle team on the mountain and said, if we fly up there, we will easily become targets. Upon hearing Chun Xiang's doubts, the people of Xuanzhen's sect, who were originally smiling, could not help but frown. Chun Xiang was right. The cape allowed players to fly freely in the sky. Moreover, it also provided a bonus movement speed. However, flying in the sky was not as agile as standing on the ground. It should be known that in a fight between experts, it was extremely difficult to rely on movement and positioning to avoid attacks. Dodging the opponent's attacks mostly relied on skills. Flying in the sky, many dashing skills could not be used. The restrictions were too great. The 9 provinces battle team now had 6 long-range attack professions. They were not weak in the air at all. If they flew up rashly, although they could avoid the opponent's formation, they would probably not have a good ending. There was an 80% chance that they would be directly shot down. That's right. Faced with Chun Xiang's doubts, Wuji nodded in satisfaction and said, of course we will become targets. Therefore, we must first give them a target to attract their attention. Make a ruckus in the east and attack in the west. Yes, Wuji said. As long as we leave a few people on the mountain path to feign an attack, the others could take a detour on both sides. Nonsense. To place one's pride said, are they blind? You think you can't see them if you go up there? That's a good question. Wuji pointed at the 2 warriors blocking the path at the top of the mountain and said, can you see the people behind them? At To Place One's Pride looked up and didn't say anything. As a tank profession, warriors were all tall and sturdy. When the 2 warriors squeezed into the mountain path, they really couldn't see the people behind them. Mingdu said, they're on the mountain, so their field of vision is wider than ours. I know. Wuji glanced at everyone indifferently and said, therefore, we need to find a few big guys to attract their firepower on the mountain path. As he said that, Wuji pointed at Wang Yu and said, old cow, old Yao, second bro, I'll leave this difficult task to you guys. Wang Yu was 186 meters tall and had a tall and sturdy body. Yin Laoer was a tank. He could adjust his body size and was half a head taller than Wang Yu. His shield was more than 2 meters tall, so he could block the people behind him. Although evildoers run, Wild wasn't as tall as the 2 of them. He was wide. These 3 people were definitely the biggest in Xuanzhen's group. Of course, being tall was only one aspect. Wuji had also carefully thought about choosing these 3 people. Bei was not something that anyone could be. The people standing on the mountain were the top experts in the country. They were much stronger than the opponents they had encountered before. 5 Lakes 4 Seas was a person with a suspicious nature. If they just stood on a mountain path and didn't fight with the 9 States team, it would definitely arouse the suspicion of 5 Lakes 4 Seas. Therefore, if they wanted to attract the attention of all the Nine States team on the mountain, they had to fight. With the strength of the Nine States team, if it was someone else, they would definitely not be able to hold on. If the 3 people who acted as bait were killed in one wave, then there would be no point in sneak attack. The ability of the 2 brothers, Wang Yu, didn't need to be mentioned. If the 2 of them couldn't do it, Xuanzhen wouldn't. Yin Lao Air had the Divine God Shield and a Magic Shield, which could also withstand several waves of attacks from the Nine States team. As long as they could stall the people on the mountaintop, this period of time was enough for the others to fly to the top of the mountain to complete the sneak attack. With regards to the 3 people that Wuji had chosen, no one had any objections. After all, whether it was in terms of size or strength, everyone knew their limits. Moreover, the purpose of being a bait was to die. Who would fight to be the first to die for no reason? At this time, on the top of the mountain, the Nine States team had been waiting in formation, ready to go. It could be seen that the motley crew at the foot of the mountain still refused to go up the mountain. At the front, Universal 8 Desolation said somewhat anxiously, "What are those guys doing? Why aren't they coming up yet?" "Huh." Universal 8 Desolation laughed and said, "They aren't trying to delay time with us, are they?" The tactic of delaying time was shameless, but it wasn't against the rules. The motley crew had done this a lot in the previous matches, and it was not impossible for them to do it in the final match of the finals. Chapter 1301. Trouble. All Directions laughed. "Boss, you worry too much. They don't even dare to come up. What trouble could there be?" "I don't know." All Directions frowned. "Although I don't know what's wrong, I have a feeling that something isn't right. Look, they're coming up." Just as All Directions and 4Cs were in a dilemma, All Directions and 4Cs suddenly pointed at the foot of the mountain and shouted excitedly. All Directions and 4Cs shouts immediately cleared All Directions and 4Cs doubts. All Directions and 4Cs quickly looked towards the source of the voice and saw Wang Yu, Yin Lao Air, and Evildoers Run Wild standing in a row on the mountain path, walking up the mountain. The 2 brothers, Wang Yu and Yin Lao Air, were tall and strong, and with Yin Lao Air holding his shield up high, it was hard to tell if there was anyone behind him from above. Wang Yu and Evildoers Run Wild's deterrence was still very strong. Seeing Wang Yu and Evildoers Run Wild walking at the front, All Directions and 4Cs was shocked and quickly ordered, "Everyone be careful. Those 2 Grandmasters of Combat are not to be trifled with. Do not let them come up." "Okay." Ba Huang Luha nodded and gripped the shield in his hand tightly. The others received the order and also aimed their weapons at the foot of the mountain. They focused their attention on Wang Yu and the others who were walking towards them. The distance from the top of the mountain to the foot of the mountain was not too far, only a few dozen meters. While everyone was distracted, Wang Yu and the others walked into the range of the archers. Nine Skies God arrows and a few other archers immediately knocked their arrows and used multiple arrow to scatter at the 3. Archers did not have many AoE skills other than arrow rain. Multiple arrow was one of them. Unlike arrow rain, although arrow rain could fire dozens of arrows at once, its attack power was relatively low and the shooting range was more difficult to hit. The arrows still fell from the sky, and as long as the target took a few quick steps forward, they could easily dodge arrow rain. Multiple arrow, on the other hand, could fire 5 arrows at once. Not only did it have high attack power, but it also had magic damage, which was very suitable in this situation. The mountain path was narrow, so the 3 of them released multi-arrows at the same time. 15 arrows spread out in a row and flew towards Wang Yu's group. Facing the incoming arrows, the 3 of them did not stop at all. Yin Lao Air raised his shield. Dang, dang, dang. A few arrows hit Yin Lao Air's shield and were easily blocked. Wang Yu pulled out a long sword, and with a flick of his wrist, all the arrows flying towards Wang Yu were knocked to the ground. Evildoers Run Wild was even more straightforward. He put his palms together and caught all the arrows in front of him. Then, he broke them into 2 and threw them on the ground. Wang Yu and Rampant Demon knew how powerful the 9 Heavens God arrow was. Even if he shot out a multi-arrow, the Nine Heavens God arrow wouldn't be able to hurt the three of them. It would only be able to stop the three of them from advancing and keep them within range. However, he had never expected that the attacks of the three of them would not even have the most basic effect of blocking. Inlauer was still manageable. After all, he was a shield warrior, so it was normal for him to restrain archers. However, these two grandmasters of combat had blocked his attacks with their bare hands. Moreover, they were top-notch experts attacks. This was terrifying to the point of being sick. Archers didn't have any control skills. It wasn't very reliable to rely on archers to control their opponent's movements. Moreover, their opponents were existences like Wang Yu. If the multi-arrow didn't work, then there was no need to mention other attacks. The distance between the two sides was getting closer. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yu's group of three was within the range of the Nine Heavens God arrow and the others. After entering the range of the sorcerer, it was on a completely different level from the drizzle earlier. Although the sorcerer didn't have as many control skills as the warlock, the control skills of the ice sorcerer were also full of tricks. Even if Inlauer was a shield warrior, he wouldn't be able to block the skills that emerged from the ground. Ice Path. Seeing that Wang Yu's group of three had entered his attack range, Five Lakes Four Seas tapped the ground with his staff. The ground instantly froze and instantly turned into an ice path that spread under the feet of the three. Tornado. Wall of Fire. Just as Five Lakes Four Seas ice path was under the feet of the three of them, the two insignificant kids and the other sorcerer raised their staffs at the same time. Whoosh! A wall of fire rose in front of the three of them. At the same time, a green tornado rose from the wall of fire. Wall of Fire and Tornado were both intermediate skills of the sorcerer. They weren't very powerful, but when they were released at the same time, they instantly merged into one. The tornado rolled up the flames on the ground. With the help of the wind, the wall of fire, which was originally less than 2 meters wide, suddenly increased the range of the magic by several times. With the help of the wind, the tornado rose to a height of a few meters under the support of the flames. It directly blocked the mountain path and swept towards Wang Yu's group of three at an alarming speed. F***CK. It's the combination skill, Flaming Storm. Seeing this magic, the audience cried out in excitement. The so-called combination skill was a combination of magic released by two people at the same time to enhance the damage and effect of magic skills. The magic in Rebirth also paid attention to mutual enhancement and restraint. As long as the two magic attributes were compatible with each other, it could turn the rotten into the magical and derive a combination skill that was several times more powerful. However, this skill wasn't an official skill. It was just a skill that the players accidentally researched. Although this skill could double the magic damage, it required a high level of cooperation between the two parties. Whether it was the casting time or the magic power, it had to be strictly controlled. If there wasn't enough tacit understanding, it was likely to have the opposite effect. The battlefield of a PvP match was ever-changing. No matter how tacit understanding everyone had, they weren't the same person. No one would stand there and wait for the two of them to discuss and release their magic. Therefore, this skill wasn't practical in PvP. However, now that Nine States team occupied the high ground and played a defensive battle, the sorcerer stood in the back and only needed to deal damage at will, so there was no problem with using this skill. The strength of the two guesses was the lowest in Nine States team. Their magic damage wasn't much higher than that of Ming due at this moment. When they combined their magic with another sorcerer, the power of their magic could be imagined. Even a tank like Inlauer would lose a layer of his skin against the magic. Seeing this, Wang Yu and Evildoers Run Wild each grabbed one of Inlauer's shoulders and used Ferocious Tiger Strike at the same time. Then, they jumped back together and pulled Inlauer out of the attack range of the Flaming Storm. Ice Prison. At this moment, Five Lakes Four Seas raised his staff, and icicles rose from the feet of the three and surrounded Wang Yu's team. At the same time, everyone else's attacks were also aimed at the three of them. Five Lakes Four Seas was indeed a sinister and cunning guy. The Flaming Storm just now wasn't to attack the opponents, but to force Wang Yu's team into the cage that he had drawn. Chapter 1302. Bang! Bang! With two muffled sounds, evildoers run wild, and Lao air were kicked back several meters, escaping Five Lakes Four Seas control. Then, Wang Yu's figure flashed and appeared behind the two. Crash! The ice cage missed and shattered into pieces. The hearts of the Five Lakes and Four Seas suddenly shook. Ice Cage was a crowd control skill that was not slow to cast. Even a top-tier expert would have a hard time dodging the skill if it was cast without warning. However, not only had Wang Yu dodged a skill, but he had also pushed the other two players away. Even Five Lakes Four Seas, who was used to seeing experts, found it hard to accept this scene. The goal of Wang Yu and the others was to attract the enemy's firepower, not to risk their lives. Seeing that the opponent was so fierce, the three of them retreated a few steps and got out of the range of the magicians. However, Nine States Battle Team was full of experts. Once the formation of Wang Yu and the others was slightly messed up, their opponents saw through it. Six Directions, 8 Desolation, who was in front, said doubtfully, "There seems to be no one behind them." No one. Five Lakes Four Seas was shocked and said hurriedly, "Not good. The others have circled behind them." As he said that, Five Lakes Four Seas turned around and saw that the rest of the motley bunch had flown into the air behind them. Circle behind? Although the others were puzzled, they immediately turned around when they heard Five Lakes Four Seas words. When they saw Wuji and the others, everyone was stunned. However, Nine States Battle Team was a top expert after all. After being stunned for a moment, they recovered and aimed their arrows and wands at Wuji and the others who were flying behind them. "Not good. We've been discovered. Everyone land quickly." Seeing that Nine States Battle Team turned around, Chuanjin and the others weren't in a good mood. At Wuji's order, everyone retracted their wings and descended from the air. However, Nine States Battle Team reacted quickly. Just as Chuanjin and the others were about to retract their wings, the magic and arrows of Nine States Battle Team had already flown in front of them. At this critical moment, everyone used their skills to land quickly. Baosan had Bouncing Strike, Mingdu had Blink, and A Place One's Pride had Eagle Stamp, all of which forced the player to land. The three of them were the first to land. Yang Na couldn't use Evade in the air, but she was extremely agile. She turned around and fired a shock arrow at the sky, using the recoil to successfully dodge the attack. Baiming Yu had always been a cautious person, and her reaction was extremely fast. Before Wuji gave the order, she had already folded her wings and landed on the ground, luckily avoiding the disaster. Wuji and Chunxiang, on the other hand, were not so lucky. Firstly, they did not have a skill that forced them to land, and secondly, they were not as agile as Yang Na. They were blasted into white light on the spot. At the same time, the motley crew received Wuji's last words before he died. "Now the people on the mountain are bait. You know what to do." Seeing Wuji's last order, Mingdu and the others dispersed in all directions without saying a word. Wuji and Chunxiang had always been the leaders of Chuanjin. Seeing that the two of them were killed, even the formation of Chuanjin scattered. Five Lakes Four Seas was overjoyed and said cheerfully, "Wuji is already dead. Now, they're like a plate of loose sand. Quickly kill them all." The top of Watchtower Peak was just a platform. The space was not big, and it was just within the range of the archers. However, most of the archers had single-target skills, and the people of Chuanjin were fleeing in secret. For a moment, the people of 9 Provinces Battle Team really couldn't deal with these guys quickly. Just when everyone was ready to kill the 5 people of the motley crew on the mountain, 6 Directions, 8 Desolation suddenly shouted, "Not good. The 3 people at the foot of the mountain are rushing up." Five Lakes Four Seas hurriedly said, "Archers, deal with the people on the mountain. Mages, deal with the people at the foot of the mountain." As he said that, Five Lakes Four Seas and 2 Guesses 2 turn around and raise their hands. An overwhelming amount of magic once again blocked the mountain path. Wang Yu and Evildoers Run Wild were grandmasters of combat, so they didn't have a strong defense like Lao Air. If there were archers at the side to add fuel to the fire, The two of them would need to divert their attention to deal with the arrows. At this time, without the harassment of the archers, the pressure on the two of them was greatly reduced. As the magic of 5 lakes 4 seas and the others fell, Wang Yu and Evildoers Run Wild jumped at the same time. One on the left and the other on the right, they stepped on the mountain wall and rose straight up. They crossed the magic line of 5 lakes 4 seas and jumped directly in front of 6 directions 8 desolation and 4 directions 8 desolation. Go down. Seeing that Wang Yu had landed, 6 directions 8 desolation immediately used a shield strike. Wang Yu lowered his body and crouched on the stairs. 6 directions 8 desolation's position was originally higher than Wang Yu's. So, when Wang Yu crouched, he easily dodged 6 directions 8 desolation shield strike. 6 directions 8 desolation, who had missed its attack, immediately lost its balance. Seeing this, Wang Yu grabbed 6 directions 8 desolation's ankle with his left hand and pulled him up. Ayaya! 6 directions 8 desolation screamed as it was thrown down the mountain. At this time, halfway up the mountain, Yin Lao Air had already broken through the magic line of defense. Seeing 6 directions 8 desolation rolling towards him, Yin Lao Air raised his shield and smashed it with all his strength. Boom! With a loud noise, 6 directions 8 desolation was knocked unconscious at Yin Lao Air's feet. After being knocked down from a height of more than 10 meters by Wang Yu, 6 directions 8 desolation's health dropped by more than half. After being smashed so hard by Yin Lao Air, its health bar immediately turned red. Taking advantage of the enemy's weakness had always been the basic quality of Chuanjin. Naturally, Yin Lao Air would not give 6 directions 8 desolation a chance to fight back. He turned to 6 directions 8 desolation's side, lowered his head, and leaned over to use charge to knock 6 directions 8 desolation into the mountain wall. He displayed his signature ping-pong play, and after a few ups and downs, the poor 6 directions 8 desolation was knocked out of the field. On the other side, 6 directions 8 directions and Evildoers Run Wild were also engaged in battle. Confucius once said, "Great strength produces miracles." As a full power fighter, Evildoers Run Wild's techniques were far from being as aesthetically pleasing as Wang Yu's, but in actual combat, he was much cleaner and more efficient than Wang Yu. As soon as Evildoers Run Wild landed on the ground, 6 directions 8 directions swung his great sword and slashed at him. Evildoers Run Wild suddenly took a step forward, dodging the attack and dodging to the side. Then he turned his body and, with his arms sticking to 6 directions 8 directions back, he stretched out his palm leaf-sized palm and grabbed the back of 6 directions head. Evildoers Run Wild had put all his points into full power, so his strength was extraordinary. His judgment was obviously better than a warrior's, and after 6 directions was grabbed, he could not break free. Evildoers Run Wild grabbed the back of 6 directions head and fiercely pushed it against the mountain wall beside him. Bang! 6 directions head smashed heavily against the mountain wall. Evildoers Run Wild's full power attack power was not inferior to Wang Yu's, and the head was a vital part of the body. In an instant, 6 directions health bar was halved. In just 2 moves, he had passed away in all directions. A warrior with coarse skin and thick flesh was smashed to death on a rock, just like that. The spectators on the stage were terrified, and 6 directions 8 directions was scared out of their wits. Chapter 1303. In just 1 round, both sides had sacrificed 2 players. It seemed that no one had suffered a loss, but in fact, the difference was huge. From the very beginning, Motley Crowd Battle Team didn't intend to fight head-on with 9 Regions Battle Team. Therefore, there wasn't much room for Chun Xian's control in the battle. Moreover, the essence of the roundabout tactic was to let the opponent be attacked from both front and back. Now that everyone had done it, Wu Ji also issued the last command and left very peacefully. However, 9 Provinces Battle Team's current playstyle was based on defense, and the tank profession was undoubtedly the most important. The death of 6 directions 8 desolation and 4 directions 8 desolation directly caused 9 provinces battle team's formation to lose its most important line of defense. Although the strength of the other members of Motley Crowd battle team was not as good as Wang Yu and Evildoers Run Wild, they had Yang Na and Ming Du, two powerful long-range attackers, so the 9 provinces battle team's archers didn't dare to take them lightly. At the back, Ming Du and the others had already held back half of the damage output from the 9 provinces battle team. Now, Wang Yu and the Demon Rampage duo had also reached the high ground. The 9 provinces battle team no longer had any defensive strength, and there was a tiger in front and behind them. It was undoubtedly a fool's dream to think that they could resist the Wang Yu and Demon Rampage duo with just 3 mages. After taking care of the 2 warriors, Wang Yu and the evildoer Hung Xing roared, waved their fists, and rushed towards the 3 people from the 5 lakes and 4 seas. Seeing this, the 3 were shocked and hurriedly raised their staffs at the same time. Ice wall, fire wall, thunder net. Along with the chant of the 3 magic lines of defense rose at the same time, forming a huge ice wall with bright flames and flashing lightning, forcibly blocking Wang Yu and Ming Du on the other side. At the same time, 9 Skies God Arrow and 5 Lake 4 Seas both took a step back and exchanged positions. Huh, what does this mean? Seeing this scene, the audience couldn't help but wonder. Although mages had low HP, they were still more resistant than archers. Not to mention that mages had endless defensive skills, so their survivability was relatively higher. What was the point of defense at this time? Just when everyone was puzzled, the 9th Heaven God Arrow took the quiver from his waist and pulled it gently. The arrows fell to the ground, and the quiver turned into a small school bag. The 9th Heaven God Arrow grabbed the bag and shook it. A pile of spare parts fell out of the bag. Then, he quickly assembled the 9th Heaven God Arrow with both hands. In less than 5 seconds, all the parts at the foot of the 9th Heaven God Arrow were assembled. A 3-meter-tall mecha warrior appeared in front of everyone. F*CK. Gundam? Seeing the mecha created by the 9 Heavens God Arrow, the audience was stunned. What the F*CK? How could there be something like this in a fantasy game? This was too F*King fantastical. Under the astonished gazes of the audience, the 9th Heavens God Arrow leaped onto the mecha. Then, the mecha began to move. At this time, Wang Yu and Evildoers Run Wild had also broken the strengthened ice wall and arrived in front of the 9 Heavens Divine Arrow. F*CK. Faced with such a high level of technology, even Wang Yu, who was usually calm, showed a shocked expression. On the other side, Ming Du and the others were also shocked when they saw this. They wanted to rush over to help, but the original position of a 9 Heavens God Arrow had been replaced by 5 Lakes 4 Seas. 5 Lakes 4 Seas waved his staff above him. An ice wall rose from the ground, blocking the attack of Ming Du and the others. At this time, the audience also understood the intention of 5 Lakes 4 Seas and 9 Heavens God Arrow switching defense. The archers at the back had very few control skills and area of effect skills. Faced with the motley crew that was charging at them, the 3 archers barely managed to hold their opponents in a stalemate with their advantage in strength. As for the mages at the front row, although they had many skills, they were also struggling when the Grandmasters of Combat got close. At this time, the 2 of them switched positions, and 5 Lakes 4 Seas successfully filled the gap. The rear was suppressed by Ming Du and the others, and the 9 Heavens God Arrow at the front row played the role of a tank. Evildoers Run Wild had died in the hands of the 9 Heavens God Arrow once before, and now that they had met again, their eyes burned with hatred. Seeing the 9 Heavens God Arrow's mech, Evildoers Run Wild turned to Wang Yu and said, "You go take care of those 2 mages. I'm going to take revenge." As he said this, Evildoers Run Wild rushed over and swung his fist. The 9 Heavens God Arrow also knew how ruthless Evildoers Run Wild's fist was. At this time, there was no way to avoid it, so naturally, he did not want to use his body to take it head-on. So, he controlled the mech to swing his huge fist and smash it back. Boom! The fist of the man and the mech collided, creating a deafening sound. After the loud sound, evildoers Run Wild and Nine Heavens God Arrow both took a few steps back at the same time. 20,000, a huge number floated above evildoers Run Wild's head, and evildoers Run Wild's health bar was directly reduced by a third. Although Nine Heavens God Arrow did not lose any health, anyone who was in pain would know. System notification: mech damaged by 20%. F***CK. Nine Heavens God Arrow's heart was bleeding, and his eyes were tearing up. This was all King Silver. This one punch from evildoers Run Wild was worth at least 3,000 gold. F***CK. That's pretty ruthless. Evildoers Run Wild shook his head and was about to attack again. Nine Heavens God Arrow's heart was about to break, and he did not dare to go head-on against evildoers Run Wild. So, he quickly controlled the mech to jump back, and at the same time, swung his arms, and countless bullet holes appeared on his arms. Bang! An explosive sound rang out, and countless arrows shot toward evildoers Run Wild like rain. Evildoers Run Wild's pupil shrank, and he hurriedly landed on the ground with eagle steps. As he moved, he waved his hands to block the flying arrows. Although evildoers Run Wild was a martial artist, his level was still far from Wang Yu's. Moreover, this kid put all his stat points into full power, and he was used to using strength to break technique, so his movements were not very agile. Moreover, evildoers Run Wild did not know 7 astral steps, right? Faced with so many arrows, even Wang Yu had to spend a lot of effort, and evildoers Run Wild was even more flustered. He could only protect his vitals, and in an instant his shoulders and thighs were hit by several arrows. Hiding behind Nine Heavens God Arrow, the two young guesses saw that evildoers Run Wild was unable to stop him, and so they waved their staffs to help. However, before they could finish chanting, a pair of big hands suddenly held their necks from behind. At the same time, a deep voice came into their ears. "Where are you looking? Your opponent is me." Hearing this, the two young guesses quickly turned around, and Wang Yu's big face appeared behind them with a smile. "Hello, goodbye." Wang Yu smiled at the two, and his hands suddenly exerted force. Crack! Hearing the sound of bones breaking, the two young guesses' heads tilted and drooped softly on their shoulders. They turned into 2 white lights and flew out of the arena. Everyone's body trembled. Damn it, could it be that his neck was broken? The Gundam version of Nine Heavens God Arrow was obviously more powerful than the Iron Man version. After this round of shooting, although evildoers Run Wild did not die, he was shot like a hedgehog. His health bar was reduced to less than 30%, and he was also slowed down. Energy Impact. Chapter 1304. Just as the energy impact was released, a white light wrapped around evildoers Run Wild and pulled evildoers Run Wild to the side. Boom! The energy impact missed and flew into the sky. Seeing that Wang Yu had suddenly saved evildoers Run Wild, Ninth Heaven God Arrow turned around and shouted, "What are you doing?" Wang Yu grabbed evildoers Run Wild by the collar and threw him behind him. Then he said indifferently, "He lost. Now I am your opponent." Everyone had times when they got carried away. After defeating a supermaster like evildoers Run Wild twice, Ninth Heaven God Arrow's mood was very inflated. He suddenly felt a little arrogant. Hearing Wang Yu's words, Ninth Heaven God Arrow waved his arms and aimed at Wang Yu. He sneered and said, "You are courting death." After saying that, Ninth Heaven God Arrow activated the mecha. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, dozens of arrows flew out of the bullet holes in his arms and flew toward Wang Yu. It seemed that Ninth Heaven God Arrow still had some misunderstanding about martial art practitioners. In his eyes, evildoers Run Wild and Wang Yu were twins. Even if they were brothers, their strength should not be far apart. If he could beat evildoers Run Wild, he could beat Wang Yu. Little did he know that it was really stupid to judge Wang Yu based on evildoers Run Wild's strength. Although evildoers Run Wild and Wang Yu were biological brothers, The gap between them was at least 10 times that of pure ice and pure jade. With evildoers run wild's kung fu, he could bully ordinary people, but it was not worth mentioning in front of Wang Yu. Putting aside his cultivation base, in terms of the way he added his points, Wang Yu's agility and strength were an all-round development. He was completely different from evildoers run wild, who added all his points to strength. It was one thing to use the Nine Heavens God arrow to bully a clumsy grandmaster of combat, but to use it in front of Wang Yu, wasn't that asking for death? Wang Yu sneered. Instead of retreating, he took a step forward and thrust his palms into the rain of arrows, grabbing them here and there. Everyone could only see the shadows of his hands moving up and down. When they came to themselves, Wang Yu had already caught all the arrows of the Ninth Heaven God arrows. Seeing that, the Ninth Heaven God arrow's jaw dropped to the ground. The audience was so shocked that their eyeballs almost popped out. At this stage of the game, most players were already level 50. Catching an arrow with their bare hands wasn't limited to agility-type classes. Some experts of strength-type classes were also capable of doing so, albeit with difficulty. However, there was still a huge difference between being able to do it and being able to do it. Catching an arrow was not difficult, but there was absolutely no one who could catch dozens of arrows in one go like Wang Yu did. Not to mention dozens of arrows. Even if it was more than a dozen arrows, the number of people who could do it could be counted on one hand in the entire game. Moreover, the distance between Wang Yu and the Ninth Heaven God arrow was less than 3 meters. Catching dozens of arrows with his bare hands at such a close distance. Was he even human? However, Wang Yu's strength was just the tip of the iceberg. What happened next directly shattered the audience's worldview. Feather shot. The Ninth Heaven God arrow's attack was blocked by Wang Yu. Naturally, the Ninth Heaven God arrow wouldn't just sit there and wait for his death. After being stunned for a moment, the Ninth Heaven God arrow roared and manipulated his mecha to pull back its hands. An arrow as thick as an arm and 3 to 4 meters long appeared in his hands. The Ninth Heaven God arrow grabbed the arrow and swung it in the air. With one hand holding the feather at the back of the arrow and the other hand holding the middle of the arrow, he used the arrow as a spear and stabbed at Wang Yu. The Ninth Heaven God arrow's mech was 3 meters tall, with long arms and legs. With a casual stab, the spear in its hands instantly stabbed in front of Wang Yu's eyes. Wang Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. He lightly stepped to the side and dodged the sudden stab of the Ninth Heaven God arrow. The Ninth Heaven God arrow's stab missed. He immediately grabbed the end of the spear and twisted it, then swung it from the left toward Wang Yu's face. However, at this moment, Wang Yu raised his hands and used the hidden weapon technique, Rain of Flowers. Dok 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 dok. With a series of rapid, muffled sounds, the arrows in Wang Yu's hands all flew out and stabbed into the joints of the Ninth Heaven God arrow. Rebirth was, after all, a fantasy game. Things like engineering mechanisms were relatively crude. No matter how good the Ninth Heaven God arrow was, it was impossible to really make this thing into a Gundam. Wang Yu's arrows stabbed into the joints of the mech. They didn't deviate, and the 4 limbs of the mech were stuck. Creak. Could a stuck mech still be called a mech? It could only be called trash. The Ninth Heaven God arrow spear was stuck in the air halfway. F***CK. F***CK. Seeing this, the Ninth Heaven God arrow was shocked. He hurriedly fiddled with the buttons of the mech, tried to forcibly break the arrows that were stuck in the joints. Naturally, Wang Yu wouldn't give him the chance. Just as the Ninth Heaven God arrow was in a panic, Wang Yu leaped to the side of the head of the mech. With a thunder stomp, he stomped heavily on the face of the Ninth Heaven God arrow. The 4 limbs of the mech couldn't move now. With such a powerful stomp on the head, it would naturally lean back. Since its legs couldn't move back to maintain balance, Wang Yu's stomp knocked the mech to the ground. King Kong falls. In the air, Wang Yu bent his knee and suddenly fell from the sky, smashing heavily on the neck of the Ninth Heaven God arrow. Crack! With one hit, a crack appeared on the neck of the Ninth Heaven God arrow. Ninth Heaven God arrow received a notification. Mech damaged 25%. Please repair it immediately. F***CK. Ninth Heaven God Arrow wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Profound meaning, dragon's subduing palm. At this time, a golden light flashed on Wang Yu's body. He activated the ultimate awakening mode. His right hand formed a knife and stabbed the crack in the neck of the Ninth Heaven God Arrow. Crack! The crack suddenly widened under Wang Yu's heavy attack. The head of the Ninth Heaven God Arrow was cut off by Wang Yu's palm. It fell to the ground. Ninth Heaven God Arrow received another notification. Mech damaged 35%. Please repair it immediately. The poor Ninth Heaven God Arrow could hear the sound of its heart breaking. But Wang Yu didn't care. The duration of the dragon's subduing palm was not long. Naturally, he had to find a way to deal the most damage to his opponent in this short time. After cutting off the head of the Ninth Heaven God Arrow, Wang Yu didn't stop. He stood up and kicked the shoulder of the Ninth Heaven God Arrow. Pah! The right shoulder of the Ninth Heaven God Arrow was crushed by Wang Yu. At the same time, Wang Yu's left hand grabbed the wrist of the Ninth Heaven God Arrow, and his right hand formed a claw to grab the elbow of the Ninth Heaven God Arrow. Crack! The right arm of the Ninth Heaven God Arrow was directly pulled off by Wang Yu and thrown to the side. Notification: Mech damaged 50%. Ninth Heaven God Arrow's struggle was not in vain. Under the Ninth Heaven God Arrow's efforts, the Ninth Heaven God Arrow could finally move its left leg. It lifted its leg and kicked Wang Yu. Wang Yu reached out and caught the kick. He crushed the Ninth Heaven God Arrow's crotch with his foot and pulled it up again. Crack! The left leg of the Ninth Heaven God Arrow was removed. Notification: Mech damaged 65%. Chapter 1305. Next was the right leg, and then the left hand. Wherever Wang Yu went, the mech would make a cracking sound. The audience felt their scalps go numb. Immediately after that, she exerted force with both her hands and feet. With the sound of limbs snapping, the mecha's 4 limbs were all yanked off by Wang Yu. In the blink of an eye, Nine Heavens Arrow's mech was torn apart by Wang Yu, leaving only the torso. The audience was in a state of chaos when they saw the Gundam, which was so powerful that it made evildoers run wild, unable to fight back, being torn apart by Wang Yu in less than a few rounds. Mother asterisk her, he tore apart a Gundam with his bare hands. Was he still human? As expected, there was no strongest class, only the strongest overpowered class. The one who felt the worst was Nine Heavens Arrow, who was lying in the cockpit. System notification: Mech damaged 95%. Difficult to repair. Nine Heavens Arrow stared blankly at the system notification. 2 streams of tears flowed down his cheeks through the screen. The other players of the 9 Regions battle team felt worried for Nine Heaven God Arrow. Others might not know, but 9 states knew that this mech was Nine Heavens Arrow's lifeblood. If not for the fact that the opponent in the finals was too strong, Nine Heavens Arrow would not have used it. Who knew that the opponent was so strong that he tore the mech apart with just a few punches and kicks, with his lifeblood destroyed? One could imagine how Nine Heavens Arrow felt. The main culprit, Wang Yu, wasn't done with dismantling the mecha. He walked up, stepped on the mecha's chest, and punched the mecha's chest from top to bottom. Gotcha! A hole was punched in the mech's torso by Wang Yu, and Wang Yu pulled Nine Heavens Arrow out of the hole. With the mech destroyed, Nine Heavens Arrow had nothing left to live for. At this moment, he looked at Wang Yu blankly, as if he had seen through life. This is Kung Fu, understand? Wang Yu stared at Nine Heavens Arrow and asked. Nine Heavens Arrow did not speak. He only nodded blankly. All right, you could die now. After saying that, Wang Yu exerted force in his hand and broke the neck of the Ninth Heaven God Arrow. The Ninth Heaven God Arrow turned into a white light and was teleported off the stage. On the other side, with the addition of people from all over the world, the members of the 9 Regions battle team reformed their formation. Originally, the strength of Ming Du and the others was a far cry from this group of top experts of the 9 Provinces battle team. At this time, the 5 people of the 9 Provinces battle team formed a formation to deal with the 5 stragglers of the Chuanjin battle team. Just as Wang Yu was dismantling the Gundam with his bare hands, Ming Du was accidentally muted by the 9 States team's priest. Mingdu, who had lost the ability to cast spells, was shot to death on the spot by the archer while he was making hand signs. Without Mingdu's cover fire to place one's pride in Bao San, the two melee players became moving targets, although the remaining two archers of the Nine Provinces battle team did not have a powerful mecha like Nine Heaven's Arrow. Both of them were professional archers. Their professionalism was stronger than Nine Heaven's Arrow. In the face of such an opponent, Bao San and the others naturally had no power to fight back. After jumping a few times, they were shot full of holes and left with hatred. Northern Sea Fish relied on the Earth Escape technique and drilled under the feet of Five Lakes Four Seas, wanting to launch a sneak attack. However, Five Lakes Four Seas was already prepared. As soon as Northern Sea Fish stuck her head out, she touched the prepared ice trap and was frozen into an ice sculpture. Then, Five Lakes Four Seas cast magic. A pool of water appeared under Northern Sea Fish's feet, sinking her. Northern Sea Fish was submerged in the water and didn't know what to do. She became a real fish and then died at the feet of Five Lakes Four Seas. Although Yang Na's strength was high, her teammates were all dead. The firepower of the 5 people of the 9 Provinces battle team was all concentrated on Yang Na. These people of the 9 Provinces battle team were all top-notch experts. Their strength was not much worse than Yang Na's. Now that it was 5 against 1, Yang Na, who was originally able to handle the situation with ease, suddenly felt a heavy pressure. She could only rely on her movement technique to avoid the attacks, and had no power to fight back. Five Lakes Four Seas took a few steps forward and released the ice mirror technique under Yang Na's feet. Yang Na's flexible movement technique was restricted, and she was surrounded and killed by the archers. At this time, the score of the two sides changed from a tie to 5-3. After killing Ming Du and the others, Five Lakes Four Seas and the others turned their heads. On the side of the 9 Provinces battle team, the consumption of the 5 people wasn't big. On the side of the mob battle team, Evildoers Run Wild was already at red blood. Yin Lao Air, who had just climbed up the hill, was obviously a few levels lower than the others. If they were to fight, he probably wouldn't be able to make a move. Therefore, on the side of the mob battle team, it could be said that the only one who could fight was Wang Yu. Looking at Wang Yu and the others in front of him and the parts of the 9 Heavens God arrow on the ground, Five Lakes Four Seas was slightly stunned at first. Then, he smiled faintly and said, "It's only the 3 of you left, and you still want to fight? Surrender. At least you can lose with dignity." Hee. When Wang Yu heard this, he laughed and imitated Five Lakes Four Seas tone. "No, it's just you 3 trash. I alone am enough. Unfortunately, even if you surrender, you won't lose with dignity." Who were the experts of the 9 Provinces battle team? These people could be said to be the leaders of the gaming circle in the entire country. They were top-notch experts who were ranked among the top in the world. They had always been the ones mocking others. When had they ever been mocked by others? Moreover, there was someone who said that he wanted to challenge the 5 of them alone. Even if they were experts who had defeated the god of war, Tranquil Ziyuan, they still couldn't tolerate it. How arrogant! Without waiting for Wang Yu to finish speaking, one of the archers behind Five Lakes Four Seas shouted angrily. He knocked an arrow and aimed at Wang Yu. Whoosh! The arrow pierced through the air and flew straight at Wang Yu's chest. When Wang Yu saw this, he stretched out his hand to grab it. At this moment, the archer softly shouted, "Break!" The arrow suddenly split into 3 and flashed past Wang Yu's hand. In midair, it made a strange turn and flew towards Wang Yu's face. Phantom Arrow. This was a rare skill of the archer. It could lock onto the target and perform a second phantom attack. The 3 arrows were only a few dozen centimeters away from Wang Yu. It was already too late for Wang Yu to dodge. Thus, he blocked with his left hand and switched the weapon in his hand to the form of shield. Dang, dang, dang. The 3 arrows were blocked by the shield. However, at the same time, Five Lakes Four Seas raised his staff and smashed it on the ground, casting Ice Walk. A path of ice immediately appeared under Wang Yu's feet. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yu lightly jumped back and avoided the magic on the ground. However, before Wang Yu landed, Another archer's arrow flew in front of Wang Yu. At this time, the strength of the cooperation between the players could be seen. In terms of individual strength, the 5 members of the 9 states team were far from being Wang Yu's opponent. If it was a one-on-one, they would most likely not be able to last one round against Wang Yu. However, when the 5 of them cooperated with each other, their strength was not as simple as 1 plus 1. If the 5 of them attacked together or fought separately, Wang Yu would not be forced into such a difficult situation. However, this group of people cooperated with each other very well. Before one of them could attack, the other had already cast a spell. This seamless coordination canceled out the prerequisites of skills and the stun from the skills. The continuous chain of attacks did not give Wang Yu any room to counterattack. Chapter 1306. Experts also had self-esteem. If it was an ordinary person, 5 lakes 4 seas, and the others wouldn't use this kind of fighting style. However, when facing an opponent like Wang Yu, they naturally couldn't care less about their so-called self-esteem. This was why 5 lakes 4 seas wanted Wang Yu to surrender himself. After all, if Wang Yu surrendered, everyone would be more dignified. However, if they wanted to defeat Wang Yu with this kind of fighting style, it had to be said that 5 lakes 4 seas was thinking too much. Not only the author, but the audience and readers also couldn't accept it. It was because they weren't the protagonists. Under the continuous attacks of 5 lakes 4 seas and the others, Wang Yu was forced to jump back several times and was forced to the edge of the cliff. Potions couldn't be used in a team battle, and Evildoer's Run Wild was still in a red blood state. The opponents were all long-range attackers, especially 5 lakes 4 seas, who was a mage. If he went to help and got killed, he would lose points, but if he implicated Wang Yu, it wouldn't be worth it. If Evildoer's Run Wild couldn't intervene, Air was even more powerless. Wang Yu's movement speed was so fast that even a professional ping-pong player like Air was dazzled. At this time, if he went up with a shield, he might hit Wang Yu's body. In a battle between experts, it was better to be a bystander. He can't hold on much longer. Everyone, come on. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to be forced down the mountain, 5 lakes 4 seas and the others were happy and increased their attack frequency. However, at this moment, Wang Yu's figure suddenly exploded. He disappeared in front of everyone. 5 lakes 4 seas couldn't help but be shocked. Not good. It's a clone explosion. Everyone spread out. It seemed like the 9 provinces battle team had put in a lot of effort to deal with Wang Yu's tactics. Following 5 lakes 4 seas command, the members of the 9 provinces battle team scattered in all directions, forming a pentagon. 2 clerics stood on both sides, 5 lakes stood in the middle, and the archer with the longest hand stood in the corner. The distance between the 5 of them was just enough to avoid the Grandmaster of Combat's AoE skills, and they were all within the attack range of their respective professions. This way, not only could they avoid Wang Yu's AoE skills, but they could also launch attacks on Wang Yu no matter who he appeared next to. As expected of a top-notch expert, he had put a lot of effort into battle tactics. Although Wang Yu was far away from the 5 of them, his movement speed was extremely fast. As soon as the 5 of them stood apart, Wang Yu appeared beside the 5 lakes and 4 seas. 5 lakes 4 seas knew that he was the core of the battle team, and that Wang Yu's first target would definitely be him. Therefore, they were already prepared. As soon as Wang Yu appeared, the 5 lakes and 4 seas activated the resistance ring of fire. A ball of flame spread outwards. At the same time, the attacks from the others continued to fly over. Unhurriedly, Wang Yu jumped back lightly to avoid the defying ring of fire and the attacks of the others. Before he landed, he raised his hand and sent out a chi wave. All along, Wang Yu's battles with others had always ended with just a few punches and kicks. He rarely even used skills, not to mention this kind of long-range attack skill. Seeing Wang Yu suddenly use the Chi Master's Chi Wave, the members of 9 provinces battle team were shocked. Meow. So, this guy was actually a Chi Master? Chi Masters and Strikers were both bare-handed professions, so there was not much difference in their equipment. Those who knew how to fight might not necessarily be Strikers, but those who knew how to use Chi Wave were definitely Chi Masters. It should be known that after Chi Masters awakened, they were known as battle mages. Although their hands and feet were short and fragile, their damage output could not be underestimated. Even if they could not compare to a proper mage, they were much higher than a striker of the same profession. Everyone had seen Wang Yu's attack power. The damage of his punches and kicks was unparalleled. If his original profession was really a Chi Master, then the damage of this Chi Wave would definitely be able to instantly kill a fragile mage like 5 Lakes and 4 Seas. The reason why 9 States Battle Team was able to fight on par with Wang Yu was because of their formation and cooperation. Once the formation was disrupted, the rhythm would definitely be disrupted, and the team would be wiped out in a matter of minutes. 5 Lakes and 4 Seas had flash in hand, but facing the Chi Wave thrown by Wang Yu, he did not dare to dodge. Although they had only fought a few rounds with Wang Yu, the members of 9 States Battle Team had already felt how difficult it was to deal with Wang Yu. Even with the combined attacks of 5 top-tier experts, they were still in such a state. If it were not for 5 Lakes and 4 Seas control, the other 4 would not have been able to resist Wang Yu. Now, everyone naturally would not watch as 5 Lakes and 4 Seas was beaten to death. In the blink of an eye, just as Wang Yu's Chi Wave flew towards 5 Lakes and 4 Seas, the 2 archers hurriedly changed their target and aimed their arrows at the Chi Wave. The 2 priests also threw invincibility towards 5 Lakes and 4 Seas at the same time. Whoosh! Whoosh! The sound of air breaking rang out. The 2 arrows pierced through the Chi Wave and broke it. 2 layers of white light lit up above 5 Lakes and 4 Seas' head. Otherwise, how could he be called a top-tier expert? This arrow and holy light shield arrived first despite being fired later. The timing was perfect. However, when Wang Yu saw this scene, he seemed to have expected it. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. When 5 Lakes and 4 Seas saw that his subordinates had let go of Wang Yu and turned around to protect him, a sense of despair rose in his heart. As the saying went, the strongest defense was offense. This sentence was quite reasonable. 5 Lakes and 4 Seas were all top-tier experts. Their cooperation was seamless, and the rate of mistakes was extremely low. If it was just dodging and defending, even if Wang Yu could hold on for the rest of the time, he would not have the chance to break their formation. It could be said that the outcome was already set. If he wanted to change anything, he had to take the initiative in the battlefield. What did teamwork rely on? Rhythm. From the previous exchange, Wang Yu felt that 5 Lakes and 4 Seas was the biggest threat to him. Thus, 5 Lakes and 4 Seas was definitely the core of this team. As long as he attacked 5 Lakes and 4 Seas, the others would definitely be free to protect him. This way, the opponent's rhythm would be disrupted, and their teamwork would collapse on its own. As expected, Wang Yu only casually threw a Chi Wave at 5 Lakes and 4 Seas. Not only did he successfully divert the attacks of the 4 members of the 9 States team, he also tricked the priests into using their invincibility skill. This was an unexpected gain. For an expert like Wang Yu who was used to killing with one hit, the invincibility effect of the Holy Light Shield could only be described as disgusting. Now that the 2 priests of the 9 States team had thrown out their Holy Light Shields, it could be said that Wang Yu had no more worries. Chapter 13:07. Ouch! Wang Yu's sudden appearance startled the archer, and he hurriedly dodged back in panic. Wang Yu stepped forward and followed closely behind. As soon as the archer dodged, Wang Yu stretched out his hand and grabbed the archer's neck. Not far away, 5 Lakes 4 Seas and another archer saw this and waved the weapons in their hands to attack Wang Yu. These guys couldn't do anything to Wang Yu even when they cooperated in an orderly manner. At this time, the formation was in chaos and there was one less person, so the attack was even more futile. The archer drew his bow and arrow, but before he could aim at Wang Yu casually patted, and a white light swept over the archer's body. Immediately afterward, Wang Yu pulled back hard and grabbed the other archer in his hand. At this time, 5 Lakes 4 Seas finished chanting his magic. With a wave of his staff, the ground under Wang Yu's feet turned into a pool of stagnant water. At the same time, an ice seal flew towards Wang Yu. Wang Yu opened his arms, grabbed an archer in his left hand, and pushed down with all his might. He used the force to jump out of the pool. His right hand jerked in midair, and the archer in his right hand was thrown straight out. Pooh! Crash! The two spells from 5 lakes, 4 seas hit the two archers at the same time. One was turned into a coffin, and the other was stuck in the mud with only his head exposed. There was no need to mention Ice Seal. This skill was the strongest control skill and did no damage, but the other magic was different. What kind of damage was 5 lakes, 4 seas? Even though the damage of this skill was extremely low, a mere archer couldn't take it. The health bar on his head plummeted by 1/5. Seeing this, the priest next to him waved his staff and was about to cast a spell to heal the archer. But as soon as the priest raised his staff, he saw a sandbag-sized fist smashing towards him. F***CK. The priest was taken aback, but his reaction was quite fast. He subconsciously used his staff to block in front of him. Crack! There was a crisp sound as the priest's staff was broken by the punch. The remaining force of the punch was unstoppable as it landed on the priest's chest. The priest felt a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas slam into his chest. Immediately after, his entire body was sent flying uncontrollably by the punch. He flew for 7 to 8 meters and crashed into another priest. The two of them fell and rolled on the ground. At this moment, evildoers run wild, leaped high from the sky, and landed in front of the two priests. He grabbed them by their collars and threw them down from the top of the mountain. Amidst the screams, the two of them proved that there was gravity in a magical world, and they also proved to the audience that falling headfirst could really kill someone. Evildoers Run Wild clapped his hands and glared at the foot of the mountain. He said unhappily, "Damn it, do you really think I don't exist?" In the blink of an eye, more than half of the 9 provinces battle team was dead or injured. Looking at the two archers who had lost their fighting power, 5 Lakes 4 Seas was completely dumbfounded. Just now, there were still 5 people in the 9 provinces battle team, but now it had unexpectedly become a tie with the opponent. Moreover, now the 9 provinces battle team had either died or were injured, and the only one who could fight was 5 Lakes 4 Seas. What was the meaning of every dog has its day? What was the meaning of every dog has its day? 5 Lakes 4 Seas' thoughts were in a mess. Bang! A flash of lightning flashed. Under the dumbfounded gaze of 5 Lakes 4 Seas, Wang Yu trampled the archer beside him to death. There were only 2 people left in the 9 provinces battle team. Wang Yu crooked his finger at 5 Lakes 4 Seas and asked, "How about it? Do you still want to fight?" "Hey!" 5 Lakes 4 Seas looked at his companion, who was frozen into an ice sculpture and didn't even give a name, and then looked at Wang Yu and Evildoers Run Wild not far away. He couldn't help but sigh in admiration. This time, we lost. Then, 5 Lakes 4 Seas pulled out the menu and chose to surrender. With the reputation of the 9 provinces battle team, to be able to make 5 Lakes 4 Seas admit defeat, 5 Lakes 4 Seas was absolutely convinced of their loss. It couldn't be helped. From the moment 9 provinces battle team had 4 to protect 1, 5 Lakes 4 Seas knew that they had lost. After all, the opponent was a super expert like Wang Yu, who was so strong that there was no upper limit. A slight carelessness could lead to the annihilation of the team, not to mention that their formation was broken. Even without the help of Evildoers Run Wild, without the help of the 2 archers, the 2 priests could only delay the time for the team to be annihilated. Now, only 5 Lakes 4 Seas was left. Not to mention Wang Yu, this kind of heaven-defying existence who could fight 5 people at once. Even if it was Evildoers Run Wild with low HP, 5 Lakes 4 Seas didn't dare to say that he could win. It really wasn't that he wasn't strong enough, but the opponent could dismantle a Gundam. What could 5 Lakes 4 Seas do? He was also in despair. Admitting defeat was definitely a wise move. Even the god of war, Ning Jingzuan, admitted defeat in front of Wang Yu, so it wouldn't be shameful for anyone else to admit defeat in front of Wang Yu. If he shamelessly rushed up to fight to the death with Wang Yu, looking at the 9 Heavens god Arrow who had nothing left to live for, and then looking at the two priests who were thrown down a mountain, well, the way they died definitely wouldn't be too honorable. Winning and losing were common things in war. After being the champion for so many years, it was time for him to give up his position. After the surrender vote was passed, two rays of white light appeared, and 5 lakes, 4 seas, and the ice archer were teleported out of the arena. System notification: Motley Crowd Battle Team 10. 7-9 Provinces Battle Team. Motley Crowd Battle Team won the third match. After the notification, the system announced again: Motley Crowd Battle Team 17-14-9 Provinces Battle Team. Motley Crowd Battle Team won the first Pro League rebirth. The announcement was repeated 3 times in a row. The players in the arena looked at the announcement on the big screen and were shocked speechless. In the game, the players who were watching the live broadcast also quieted down when they saw the result. This time's Pro League could be said to be the most special one in history. Motley Crowd was a grassroots amateur team that no one thought highly of when they made it into the Pro Division. Who would have thought that this group of people would rely on their strength to defeat one opponent after another and make it all the way to the finals, becoming the biggest dark horse in history? In fact, everyone knew that the 9 Regions Battle Team was a truly strong team. Don't look at how the difference between the 9 Regions Battle Team and the Motley Crew wasn't big. However, from the start of the competition until now, those players who bet on the Motley Crew to win had more or less taken a gamble. Essentially, not many people believed that this group of sloppy guys could win, who knew that this dark horse really King went all the way to the end, and with their heaven-defying strength, they defeated 9 Provinces Battle Team head-on. In particular, the final 1 versus 5 battle between Wang Yu and 9 Provinces Battle Team, which still lingered in the minds of all the spectators. Those were the top 5 experts of 9 Provinces Battle Team, but they were all wiped out by one person. Not only the audience, but even the organizer of this event, the planner of Dragon Sword Game Company, had expressed out that 9 Provinces Battle Team had gone easy on them. After coming back to his senses, the host asked exaggeratedly, 5 Lakes 4 Seas boss, did you guys perform poorly this time? No, we did our best. Chapter 1308. It could be said that 5 Lakes 4 Seas was sinister. With just a few words, he shifted the hatred that was originally directed at him to Chuanjin. As a result, for a period of time, countless players went to Yu Huicheng to provoke him. Needless to say, the result was pitiful for those players who didn't believe it. They spent time and money, and in the end, lost all their experience. In short, the word pitiful couldn't be used to describe it. 9 provinces had dominated the championship position for many years, so the host was very familiar with this group of people. He knew that 5 Lakes 4 Seas was as stable as an old dog and not easy to deal with. Therefore, he turned the microphone to the Motley Crowd and said, I have to say, the Motley Crowd members are very lucky to be able to win the championship. So, what do you think allowed you to overcome all the obstacles to win the championship from the amateur tournament? Is it belief? Is it responsibility? Or is it an accident? When the Chuanjin people heard this, they all looked at Wang Yu. The host tactfully passed the microphone to Wang Yu. It seemed that this host still didn't dare to believe that the Motley Crowd could win the championship. His words were full of surprise for the Motley Crowd to win the championship. Even with a good temper like Wang Yu, he couldn't help but feel a little unhappy when he heard this. Meow, what was luck? What was an accident? How could a battle of this level be influenced by luck? It's not an accident. Wang Yu looked at the host and then said very seriously, it's strength. When he heard Wang Yu's words, the host was slightly stunned. It was a competition. Even if they won, they still had to say some polite words. Even if the opponent was far inferior to them, they still had to say things like the opponent is also very strong, and we won by a narrow margin. This way, they would appear humble and their team had substance. He didn't expect Wang Yu to be so honest and say that he won with his strength. After hosting for so many years, this was the first time he saw such a straightforward guy. This was too King arrogant. It couldn't be helped. After all, Wang Yu was in Chuanjin. This group of guys was arrogant for a long time. Of course, the capital to be arrogant came from strength. If it was any other squadron that dared to say such words, who knows how badly they would be criticized by others. However, Wang Yu had the confidence to do so. After all, Wang Yu had really displayed his suppressive strength in the competition. First, he easily defeated war god Ning Jingziyuan. Then he defeated 5 experts from the 9 provinces battle team by himself. Who would dare to not accept such a battle record? He was already at this level, yet he still said that he was far behind. He was clearly not putting his opponent in his eyes. The host was startled and quickly changed the topic. What is your so-called strength? Kung Fu. Wang Yu proudly puffed out his chest and raised his head. He pointed at the words supreme of Wulin on the battle suit and said, "This is my strength." As he spoke, Wang Yu's demeanor of a grandmaster was undoubtedly revealed. That kind of master's bearing and the confidence of a strong person made it difficult for people to associate him with a good-tempered young man just now. Moreover, when he said the word Kung Fu, it gave off an unquestionable feeling. Kung Fu. The host muttered Wang Yu's words and was stunned on the spot. The audience was also completely subdued by Wang Yu's temperament. Kung Fu. So there really is Kung Fu in this world. Yeah, I thought he was joking. I didn't expect that practicing Kung Fu could make people this strong. Looks like we also have to learn Kung Fu. For a moment, there was a lot of discussion among the audience. Comrade Old Wang and a group of martial arts legends in the Kung Fu circle were sitting in the audience. When they heard the discussion of the audience and saw that everyone was re-examining the ancient art of Kung Fu, they were moved to tears. The last time Kung Fu became popular was at the end of the 20th century. After so many years, finally people began to pay attention to this industry again. Sure enough, the fist was the truth. Without any achievements, no matter what you said, it would not have such an effect. Although everyone's starting point was not pure, it was better than no one caring about it. Everyone had now thought it through. After all, everything had to adapt to the development of the times. Otherwise, how could Kung Fu decline to this point? After the hustle and bustle, it was the award ceremony and so on. The organizer of this professional league was the largest network company in the country, Lonting Group. Naturally, the prize money would not be a small amount. As the champion team of this professional league, the prize money of the motley crowd team was as much as 30 million yuan. For the professional masters of other teams, 30 million yuan was just a year's salary or endorsement fee. For the Chuanjin team, it was a huge bonus. After all, everyone usually played small games. Although they earned enough gold coins, they were still game coins. If they could not sell them, they were trash. This 30 million was genuine gold and silver. Naturally, everyone couldn't help but be excited. Playing games and making money was the dream of many people when they were young. After a speech by the guests and the organizer, the professional league that lasted for several days finally came to an end. After returning to the hotel, everyone sat neatly at the table and stared at Wang Yu like primary school students. Wang Yu felt uncomfortable being stared at. He could not help but ask, "Why are you looking at me? Hurry up and pack your things. Tomorrow, we'll all go home and find our own mothers. Stop talking nonsense." Ming Du and the others shouted, "Hurry up and distribute the money. Distribute the money. Distribute the money? Is there such a thing in the world?" Wang Yu pretended to be puzzled. F***CK, 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 F***CK. Everyone saw that Wang Yu was pretending to be stupid and scratched their heads. Seeing everyone like this, Wang Yu could not help but feel happy. Building happiness on other people's pain was also a big tradition of Chuanjin. After she was done, Queen Wang Yu laughed and took out the check. "Let's discuss it. How should we split it?" About that, hearing that, everyone fell in a deep thought. In fact, according to Wang Yu and Chuanjin's usual style, splitting the money equally was the simplest and most crude way. However, when it came to actual benefits, splitting the money equally was a bit unreliable. Although everyone had contributed in this competition, there were more and less contributions. Especially Wang Yu. He had single-handedly destroyed half of his opponents. Under such circumstances, who would have the face to say splitting the money equally? How about old cow, take half? In the end, Wuji was the quickest to think and was the first to suggest it. I have no objections. Everyone nodded their heads in unison, expressing their agreement with Wuji's words. However, now that Wang Yu's item was taken out, no one knew what to do with the others. Chapter 1309. You guys, everyone was quite attentive. When they heard Wang Yu's words, they were all stunned and wondered. Don't you plan on taking the money? You guys can divide it. I'm not sure of money now. Wang Yu smiled gently and nodded. To be able to promote Kung Fu was the dream of Wang Yu and many martial arts practitioners. As for money, it was really not that important to Wang Yu. After all, Wang Yu was no longer the destitute young man from before. However, when they heard Wang Yu's words, everyone quietened down. After all, the person who contributed the most in this competition was Wang Yu. If Wang Yu did not take a share, it would be embarrassing for everyone else to take it. Although the guys from Chuanjin were always greedy and shameless, they were still very principled in certain aspects. Seeing everyone like this, Wang Yu was about to explain when he heard evildoers run wild yell from the side. He really doesn't lack this trifling amount. Let's just divide it. Trifling amount? Really? Everyone turned to Wang Yu in shock. After hanging around for so long, everyone knew that Wang Yu's family ran a martial arts dojo in the village. It seemed that he had some money, but this was 30 million yuan. He treated 30 million as trifling amount. Was the owner of a martial arts dojo that rich? Wang Yu smiled slightly and did not deny it. As the saying goes, the poor study and the rich practice martial arts. Although Kung Fu was now declining, the sects that could still be passed down were all rich in heritage. The poorest sect, such as Old Master Tong of the 8 Trigram School, was also worth more than 100 million. Otherwise, he would not have been able to practice his Kung Fu to this level. As the leader of the largest sect in the Kung Fu world, Wang Yu is the next leader of the Kung Fu circle. How could he be short of money? Besides, Wang Yu himself was pure and had few desires. He did not spend so much, so naturally, he would not value money too much. Even in Wang Yu's most difficult times, he only treated money as a necessity, but he never valued money too much. Since Wang Yu and evildoers run wild had already said so, they didn't stand on ceremony anymore. They divided the prize money equally. Aside from the prize money, the ragtag team had also bet 200,000 gold on Shifeng's victory. Although the odds were not high, no matter how small a fly was, it was still meat. When it came to making a fortune, Chuanjin would never think it was too little. The next day, Wang Yu and the others were woken up by their phones. In the past, these people were just nameless pawns, so naturally no one would pay attention to them. Now that they had defeated the champion team for many years, their reputation had skyrocketed. In today's society, even buying a house or a car's phone number would be leaked, let alone a competition. It would be a piece of cake for the sponsors to get their hands on the contestants' phone numbers. The things they talked about on the phone were all the same. It was all about sponsorships and poaching. Sponsorships were the foundation of a team. As for money, that was what most people pursued, so it was understandable that someone would call them. However, the act of poaching players was somewhat despicable. Although the ragtag team was a grassroots team, and they had not signed a contract with anyone, they had already started poaching players right after the competition. It was truly despicable. In order to poach people, everyone was willing to go to any lengths, and the price kept soaring. There were even people who said that as long as you were willing to join my team, you would be my grandfather. There were even people who offered the price of a first-rate expert. Of course, these guys from Chuanjin were still very self-aware. They knew better than anyone else how capable they were and why they had won the championship. If they were to hastily agree, everyone knew what the result would be. How could it be so easy to earn money? It would be better to stay in the Quanzhun sect and drink wine while counting the gold coins. It wouldn't affect their work, and they could live a carefree life. However, everyone had vanity. When someone made a phone call to poach people, it became a topic of conversation for the Chuanjin team to show off. When they woke up in the morning, to place one's pride was the first to shout, I received 4 consecutive phone calls today, all of them trying to poach me into the team. Someone offered me 10 million per month. Che, Mingdu said with disdain. There were 8 people who called me, and the price wasn't lower than yours. Am I proud? So what if there were 8? I have more than 10. I also have more than 10. I have more than 20. For a moment, the living room was bustling with chatter, and everyone's tails were raised to the sky. Uncle Nyo, did no one call you? To place one's pride saw that he couldn't compete with others. So he sneakily moved in front of Wang Yu and asked, Yes, but I didn't count. Wang Yu shook his head and said, My phone ran out of battery after 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's still charging now. TSK, 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 awesome. Everyone gave him a thumbs up. It seemed that this guy was still the most awesome. No matter how many phone calls you received, can you turn off your phone after being harassed? Obviously not. Why? Do you want to play professionally? Evildoers Run Wild saw that everyone was so excited about this matter, so he asked curiously, Che, I'm a civil servant. Mingdu looked proud and expressed deep disdain for Evildoers Run Wild's words. Bao San and Chun Xiang also touched their noses and said, We also have national subsidies. I'm a party member. I'm even an academician. Wuji was even more awesome. The others looked at Wang Yu and then looked at Wuji and said, We'll go with the party. AI. Evildoers Run Wild side and said, I originally wanted to get you a big sponsorship. Since it's like this, I'll reject it. Mingdu flopped in front of Evildoers Run Wild and said, Brother Demon, you're our master. I'll do whatever you want me to do in the future. Evildoers Run Wild was speechless. Wang Yu kicked the mischievous Mingdu aside and scolded with a smile. I'm the team leader. Even if there's a sponsorship, it's not your turn to speak. Hey, where did you get the sponsorship from? Hee hee. The evildoer Hung Xing chuckled and pointed at himself. What's wrong? Does your studio still want this reputation? Wang Yu asked in confusion. Evildoers Run Wild smiled and said, Of course. Now in the gaming circle, your popularity will last for at least a few months. With you, the profits of our studio will definitely double. You can rest assured about the remuneration. We will definitely not treat you badly. We don't care about the remuneration. Wuji pondered for a moment and said, What do we usually do? We play games to have fun, not to risk our lives. Indeed, when it came to money, these guys were all petty bourgeoisie. Although they didn't have a lot of money, they were rich. Games were just a tool for these people to pass the time. If they really had to work from 9 to 5 like normal teams, they might as well just work peacefully. It was a game, and having fun was the most important thing. Chapter 13:10. About that, after hearing Evildoers Run Wild say this, everyone understood. Not only did this kid need the popularity of a motley crew, but he also needed a team of professional fighters. To move unhindered, no one would dare to bully Evildoers Run Wild. To move unhindered and Evildoers Run Wild's strength, it was impossible for them to bully anyone. From the looks of it, even if everyone followed Evildoers Run Wild, apart from receiving sponsorships, their lifestyle wouldn't change much. As for why Evildoers Run Wild was willing to pay Chuanjin, it was because the celebrity effect could boost his studio's finances. Most importantly, the people from the Quanjin sect were quite capable. Since Unhindered World was such a big organization, it was inevitable that there would be some people who were blind enough to offend them. Monsters ran amok, and this could be considered as spending money to buy peace. Putting aside how much money the reputation of the Quanjin sect could help him earn, even if he didn't earn a single cent, it was still better to spend some money than to watch helplessly as the people from the Quanjin sect were signed by others to oppose him. In the end, he was a businessman. Even if Wang Yu was Evildoers Run Wild's older brother, it was inevitable that Evildoers Run Wild would consider some unexpected factors. To move unhindered, Chuanjin and Wang Yu had a few conflicts in the past. Evildoers Run Wild couldn't do anything about Wang Yu treating him like an older brother. The motley crew's spirituality came from Chuanjin's unrestrained and unruly nature. If they were kept in captivity, they would only be third-rate in the professional circle. Of course, everyone knew what kind of sponsorship was most suitable for them. Evildoers Run Wild's conditions were targeted at Xuanzhen's personality. They could play the game and earn a lot of money, so they had no reason to refuse. The ones who were the most excited were none other than Li Shui and the others. These girls were originally the lowest of the gold collectors. Every day, they did the hardest work for a meager salary. The life of a pro player was unimaginably far away from them. They didn't expect to be signed by the biggest guild in the game in just half a year. It all felt like a dream. If Li Shui hadn't met Wang Yu and pulled Wang Yu into the game to repay his kindness, they would probably still be moving bricks. It seemed like the saying that kindness would always be rewarded was not without reason. 2 days later, they returned home from the professional tournament. During these 2 days, Wang Yu and the others spent their time in Linhai City, enjoying the atmosphere of the metropolis. It could be considered a vacation for themselves. While Wang Yu and the others were enjoying the scenery, the term Kung Fu spread throughout the game along with Wang Yu's fame. Who was the best in melee games? Iron Ox, the Iron God. Why was he so good? Because he knew Kung Fu. In the eyes of most people, Wang Yu had become the embodiment of Kung Fu and the national idol. Wang Yu's 1v5 record in the professional arena made him a god. As the players on the forum added fuel to the fire, Wang Yu was immediately praised to the point of being a god. It was as if he could suppress all the heroes in the world, as if no one could withstand more than 3 moves from him. Of course, Wang Yu only wanted to promote Kung Fu. He didn't expect this kind of fame. After playing the game for a long time, it became a habit. Wang Yu was already so old. Although he wasn't addicted to games, the first thing he did when he returned home was to enter the game. Yuhui City was still the same as before. The setting sun was like blood as it hung over the western mountains. As Wang Yu walked along the streets, the players who saw her would all turn their heads to look at her with respectful gazes. They would then whisper to each other, "Do you see that? This is our Yu Huicheng City Lord, Iron Ox. He single-handedly defeated 5 top experts in the professional arena. He's invincible. What is this? I saw him single-handedly defeat 100 experts from Blood Alliance. Do you know sword pointing to the heavens?" Thousands of people were beaten by Ox God. Even now, they don't dare to see Xuanzhen. To move unhindered. Did you know that when he brought tens of thousands of people to attack Yu Huicheng, City Lord Ox single-handedly defeated them? He even stripped their boss and hung him on the city gate. After that, he recognized Ox God as his boss. Wang Yu's ears were very sharp. Wang Yu heard every single word. Seeing that everyone was getting more and more ridiculous, Wang Yu's face burned with embarrassment. He activated his Qin Gong and ran out of the city. Wang Yu had just left the city when he received a message from Blood Red War Flag. "Ox God, where are you? Leveling up. What's the matter?" Wang Yu replied calmly. This Blood Red War Flag brat was also a night owl who would not come without a reason. He definitely had a reason for looking for Wang Yu. Hee hee. Blood Red War Flag laughed. "You're finally online. You're our Yu Huicheng's pride. I set up a table for you at the tavern." Hearing Blood Red War Flag's words, Wang Yu was speechless. Did the Yu Huicheng players only praise people with such simple words? It was because he had heard enough of these mushy words that he ran out of the city to get some peace and quiet. Without waiting for Blood Red War Flag to finish, Wang Yu said impatiently, "What's the matter? If you don't tell me, I'll be busy." "Don't." Blood Red War Flag hurriedly asked, "Does your team have a sponsor?" "Yes," Wang Yu said confidently. Blood Red War Flag panicked when heard this. It shouted anxiously, "D*MN, which guild attacked so quickly? Brother Bull, you should at least reconsider our relationship. You should know that Bloody Dream is one of the top guilds in the country. To move unhindered." However, just as Blood Red War Flag was bragging, Wang Yu's words stopped Blood Red War Flag from saying anything else. Unhindered the World was the biggest guild in Rebirth. There was no other guild that could compete with them. They had branches in all 300 main cities in the game. In terms of power, if Unhindered the World claimed to be number 2, no one would dare to claim to be number 1. As for their relationship, to move unhindered, the big boss Evildoers Run Wild was Wang Yu's younger brother. Others might not believe it, but Blood Red War Flag definitely believed it. This kind of thing could be seen just by looking at their faces. In terms of relationship, who could compare to these two brothers? To move unhindered, since Wang Yu's team had already signed in, the other guilds naturally had no hope. Blood Red Alliance was just the beginning. Next, Dugu Jiuqiang and other guilds all sent messages to Wang Yu. The contents were all the same. Wang Yu was really annoyed. He turned off the private chat and said in the guild channel, "If there's anything, contact me in the channel. Private chat is off." "What's wrong? Someone harassed you?" Everyone laughed. They had never seen Wang Yu in such a difficult situation. Wang Yu roughly explained what had just happened. Everyone couldn't help but sigh. Hiske, as expected of to move unhindered. One guild is the biggest. Once they hear the name, no one dares to ask. Sigh. Only Wu Ji sighed. In the current situation, unhindered still isn't the only guild in power. The old demon has taken the initiative to sign us before everyone else. It's a little too high profile, and it's not necessarily a good thing. Chapter 13:11. Hearing Wuji's words, everyone pointed their middle fingers and scolded. "Old dog Wuji, shut your crow's beak. Don't cause trouble for us." Hee hee. Wuji laughed and didn't retort. He was just saying it casually. Naturally, he didn't want evildoers run wild to get into trouble. After cutting off contact with the outside world, Wang Yu was just about to focus on leveling up when suddenly, the system notification popped up. Announcement. In 30 minutes, the system will start a 24-hour update. All players, please log off in time. If you don't log off in time, you will be responsible for any losses. The announcement flashed 3 times in the sky. All the players started cursing. Damn it. Why does it have to update every other day? How can we play it? Actually, the game company was helpless against the dissatisfaction of the players. After all, Rebirth used the latest simulation technology. This was the first time such technology was used in a game, so naturally, it wouldn't be as mature as a keyboard and mouse MMORPG. Moreover, even for a keyboard and mouse MMORPG, when the server was first launched, everyone's level was soaring, and there were updates from time to time. Not to mention, Rebirth was an epical game. It was just that other MMORPG chose to update in the dead of night. But Rebirth had been updating for an entire day. Not playing the game for a whole day was terrible for a game geek. Fortunately, Wang Yu wasn't addicted to the game. His gaming condition wasn't that good either. After seeing the system notification, he said goodbye to the rest of Chuanjin and logged off. After logging off, Wang Yu practiced his punches on the balcony. When he returned to his bedroom, he saw that Mu Zixian had also logged off. She was currently browsing the forums on her computer. This was something that Mu Zixian had to do every time there was an update. Every patch was a god. Who knew who the next patch would be? As a qualified professional merchant, she had to try her best to get first-hand information about the updates. Of course, everyone had just logged off, and the game hadn't started updating yet. Naturally, there wouldn't be any updates. Seeing that Mu Zixian was engrossed in browsing the forums, Wang Yu went over to take a look and couldn't help but laugh. There were no other useful posts on the forum other than people scolding the game company for being idiots. What's the point of this? Wang Yu asked blankly as he pointed at the players cursing on the forums. Mu Zixian shook her head and said, "Boring. Then why are you looking at it so seriously?" Wang Yu was even more puzzled. "Look here." Mu Zixian stared at the screen for a while and pointed at a post on the top of the screen. Wang Yu looked in the direction that Mu Zixian was pointing. Among the hundreds of scolding posts, he really did see an analysis post. Forecast of this update. Mu Zixian picked up the mouse and clicked on it. When he clicked on it, there were only 4 words in the post: data interchange. Data exchange? What does that mean? Wang Yu was confused. Mu Zixian's face was also filled with confusion. Data interoperability was a professional term for keyboard and mouse MMORPG. It was normal that Wang Yu didn't know about it. In layman's terms, it was a pool. Because the server's capacity was limited in the past, the game company had no choice but to open up many zones. After a portion of the players had been lost, they would then connect the data to the server with a smaller number of players. But Rebirth was the most popular game at its peak. Moreover, there were many servers running at the same time. Every server was interoperable. Who could the data exchange go to? It was Bullsh asterisk T. Mu Zixin pouted. Just as she was about to close the post and continue scrolling, she glanced down and saw the name of the poster, Pride in the Sky. Mu Zixin saw this ID and couldn't help but be stunned. What's wrong? Wang Yu asked. Mu Zixin pointed at the poster and said, It's actually him. Who is this? A famous prophecy expert. Mu Zixin said. He has prophesied many updates. Oh. Wang Yu looked at this ID strangely, then pointed at the words data exchange and said, Then what does his prophecy mean this time? District. Mu Zixin gave a rough explanation. Wang Yu and Mu Zixin's reactions were the same. Isn't this game just a single zone? Don't tell me 300 main cities are combined into a large zone. It doesn't make sense. Mu Zixin smiled and said, Who knows? It's just a prophecy. It's not 100% accurate. That makes sense. Wang Yu nodded. After closing the post of Pride in the Sky, the two of them strolled around the forum for a while. Seeing that they really couldn't find any useful information, they turned off the computer and went shopping. The next morning, Wang Yu had just woken up. There were still 3 to 4 hours before the game would end. Wang Yu was just about to go out for a jog when his phone suddenly rang. Wang Yu picked up the phone and saw that it was Wuji calling. He couldn't help but be slightly stunned. This kid Wuji rarely called others. Why did he call me today? After answering the phone, Wang Yu asked, What's the matter? Why did you call me so early in the morning? At this moment, he heard Wuji say, Quickly look at the pinned post on the forum. Something big has happened. Something big? After hanging up the phone, Wang Yu turned on the computer and clicked on the main forum of Rebirth. At the top of the forum's homepage was a pinned post with over 100 million views. The post name was very simple. This update content. Poster, Rebirth Planning Department. TSK. Looking at the post, Wang Yu felt like he was cheated. It was just Meow's official update content. What was so big about it? However, when he clicked on it and saw the content, he was stunned on the spot. The first update content was data interoperability. Below, it was a map of the game after the data interoperability. After seeing this map and the update introduction, this time, Wang Yu finally understood the real meaning of the combined zone. This meant that the local server, the European server, the American server, and the servers of other countries were merged together. It had to be said that this update by Longting Corporation was really generous. With the current technology, to be able to merge all the players in the world into one server, this technology was definitely the best in the world. In the game, the appearance of the world had completely changed. Originally, there was only one continent in Rebirth, which was the Heroes Continent, where the players were currently located. Across the sea was the legendary Dragon Island, and all the other places were covered in a fog. After the data interoperability, the other 2 continents and countless islands were revealed on the map that were covered by the fog. The one across the sea was called the Lost Continent, corresponding to the American server. The one bordering the Heroes Continent was called the Shiyuan Continent, corresponding to the European server. As for the Neon, Korea, and other servers, they were merged into the Heroes Continent and became new regions. The Neon Continent corresponded to the 16th region, and the Korea Continent corresponded to the 17th region. No wonder a person as calm as Wuji could not help but call him. For game geeks like them, a common global server did not only mean a wider world. Chapter 13:12. After the data exchange, the entire map of the game expanded by more than 3 times. Apart from a wider world, there were also more resources for leveling up, more adventures, and more enemies. A game was something that was detached from reality. Constant new things and new versions were the foundation of a game's operation. It was also the belief that supported the players to continue playing. Of course, to this author and all the readers, the most important thing was that this book could survive for another few hundred chapters. Apart from the data exchange, the game also officially released 5 new special scenarios: Dragon Island, Titan City, Elven Tree, Devil Purgatory, and Sky City. Wang Yu was no stranger to the first three maps, but he did not know where the last two maps were. The system did not give clear coordinates either. There was only a small line of words. Players should explore on their own. Furthermore, the game had opened a leaderboard for the experts. It was different from the previous leaderboards. The previous leaderboards only showed the rankings of the experts in a region. This leaderboard showed the rankings of the entire game. In other words, players from all over the world had a chance to be on the leaderboard. This was the brilliance of the game company's marketing strategy. In the past, the leaderboards were just a formality. Rebirth was a game that leveled up so slowly that regional leaderboards were meaningless. However, the nature of the leaderboards worldwide was different. After all, the world was now united, and there were very few so-called extremists among the players. However, when facing players from other countries, everyone was still very competitive. For example, the players from a neighboring Japan and Korea were extremely disliked by the players from the Celestial Empire. If the players from these two countries were ranked at the top, how disgusting would that be? Unfortunately, although there were many players in the Celestial Empire, the online competition started relatively late. Many people still had certain prejudices against gaming. Therefore, the professionalization of esports had only happened in recent years. Moreover, it was not supported by the country like other sports. Therefore, the Celestial Empire's esports were just like that. Although they were ranked at the top, they were always suppressed by the neighboring Koreans. He vaguely remembered that when League of Legends was popular, fighting against the Koreans was a major theme. But for Wang Yu, this was not a problem. Anyway, no matter how strong a person was, it was the same in front of Wang Yu. If one punch couldn't kill them, then two punches. The person Wang Yu was most surprised about was the guy called Pride in Heaven. This person could actually predict the exchange of data. It seemed like he was no ordinary person. Could it be that he was an internal member of the gaming company? While Wang Yu was puzzled, Mu Zixian had also finished packing, so Wang Yu told Mu Zixian about his doubts. Mu Zixian smiled when she heard that and said, "Are you stupid or not? All the internal members have signed confidentiality agreements, and their words and actions are legally binding. How could they possibly talk nonsense on the internet? This heroic spirit has been predicting for so long, and he is still alive. This proves that there is no problem with this person. Then how did he know that the data was interconnected?" Wang Yu was puzzled. Mu Zixian thought about it and said, "Maybe he has a very sharp professional vision, or maybe it's intuition." Mu Zixian's explanation was clearly unacceptable to Wang Yu, but this was not an important matter, so there was no need to dwell on it. Finally, the game update was completed. After casually eating something, Wang Yu entered the game. After entering the game, Wang Yu was still in the wilderness. Nothing seemed to have changed. As for the updated world this time, it was only natural that he would not feel the difference if he did not explore it. Not long after, the people of Chuanjin also came online, and the Chuanjin channel became lively again. The one who shouted the loudest was naturally Mingdu. F***CK. I'm actually ranked 128 in the world. Mingdu casually sent a screenshot of the ranking to the group, unable to hide the excitement in his voice. If it were in the past, a ranking of 128 would definitely not make people like Mingdu excited, but now the ranking was worldwide. There were close to 300 million players of Rebirth in the world. To be able to rank near 100 out of 300 million players was also a very impressive thing. However, the average level of the players now was around level 52, and the average level of the people in Chuanjin was around level 55. This level was not even in the top 100, which showed that there were many experts in the world. What about you guys? What about you guys? After showing off, seeing that no one reacted, Mingdu anxiously asked, F***CK. F***CK off. Clearly, it was not that their ranking was not ideal, but that they could not compare to Mingdu. After all, he was a mage, and his damage was so high. If not for the fact that Wang Yu always solo S-rank missions, he probably would not be a match for Mingdu. Huh, you bunch of weaklings. Seeing everyone's attitude, Mingdu started mocking the group. To place one's pride, angrily circled Wang Yu and said, Uncle Nyo, Scumbagly can't hold back anymore. Iron Ox. He. Wang Yu calmly replied. Mingdu opened up the leaderboard and looked up. When he saw Wang Yu's name, he tactfully quietened down. Wang Yu, who was level 60, was at the top of the leaderboard. The player in second place was only level 58. After level 50, the speed of leveling was so slow that it made one's hair stand on end. This gap of 2 levels would require at least a month of hard work. Nyogo, what are you doing now? Mingdu asked carefully. Wang Yu answered honestly, leveling. It's very boring. TSK. Mingdu sighed. Someone as strong as Wang Yu was still working hard to level up. This was clearly not giving others a way out. I'm also very bored. Where's Nyogo? I'll train with you. It could be said that Mingdu dared to take advantage of anything. He knew how efficient Wang Yu was at leveling up, so he naturally wanted to suck up to him. However, as a mage with high damage, Mingdu did not just want to leech experience. After all, he was quite confident with his grinding speed. Come on, I'm at summit of the mountains. It's boring to farm monsters with coordinates. Wang Yu was also very bored, so he was more than happy to have someone to farm with him. He casually sent the coordinates over. Bye. When Mingdu saw Wang Yu's coordinates, he immediately chose to leave. Meow, summit of the mountains was a level 80 leveling area. It was filled with snowy mountains devil beasts with extremely high magic resistance. It didn't matter if a level 55 mage could farm those terrifying monsters. How to get there was also a problem. As expected, monsters were impossible to reason with. Sigh. Wang Yu shook his head helplessly. He killed the monster in front of him with a punch. At this moment, a strange stone slab fell out. Chapter 13:13. Arthur's Stone Carving, Quest Item. Item Introduction. Yu Huiching's Stone Carving, Arthur's Stone Carving. There seems to be a secret recorded on it. Usage requirement. None. Wang Yu smiled at the description of the stone carving and put it away. So it was a quest item with a trigger effect. Trigger quests were one of Rebirth's specialties. After all, leveling up was too boring. To prevent the players from getting bored, the designers added many interesting trigger quests to the monsters. These quests varied in difficulty, and the rewards were generous. Experience points and equipment were much more interesting than farming monsters. Usually, these quests were called strange encounters by the players. Compared to the other members of the Quanjin sect, Wang Yu was more hardworking when it came to killing monsters. Therefore, she had also encountered quite a number of fortuitous encounters. However, it was unknown if it was because Wang Yu's luck was not good, but the rewards from the fortuitous encounter missions were mostly experience points. Therefore, when Wang Yu saw the stone carving, he did not think too much of it and continued to farm monsters. But not long after, Wang Yu suddenly received a system notification. Sir Willy seems to be looking for you. Sir Willy. Wang Yu was a little confused when he saw the system notification. After thinking for a while, he remembered that the previous castellan, Yu Huicheng, had this name. Wang Yu was not a management talent. He could fight, but he could not even manage a small guild, let alone a main city. Therefore, after Wang Yu became the castellan, he left Willy in the castellan's palace as the acting castellan. This was a function that the system had specially designed to make it easier for the players to manage the main city. Seeing that the acting castellan was looking for him, Wang Yu stopped farming and jumped to the side. Normally, there was nothing important, and Willy could deal with the small things himself. This time, he was suddenly looking for him. There must be something big that he had to deal with, and it might even be a quest. Leveling up could happen sooner or later, but a hidden quest was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Thinking of this, Wang Yu chose to return to the city. Back at the castellan's mansion, Castellan Willy was in the council hall as usual with nothing to do. When he saw Wang Yu return, Willy quickly put on a worried face and welcomed him. Did you see that? The speed at which this NPC changed his expression was just that amazing. Sir Willy, may I ask why you call me here? Wang Yu asked politely. In truth, Wang Yu knew that if an NPC summoned him for no reason, it was most likely due to a quest. As a real city lord, Wang Yu had no dignity at all when he was summoned by an acting city lord. However, there was nothing he could do about it. He was an NPC and had a fixed range of activities. Wang Yu could only endure it. In the game, he still had to maintain a good relationship with the NPCs. City Lord Willie replied respectfully, "This subordinate has recently discovered that the west city walls of Yu Huicheng City are slightly damaged. I do not know the cause." The city walls are damaged? Wang Yu was puzzled. Could it be that they have not been repaired for a long time? Yu Huicheng was considered an ancient city, so it was normal for the city walls to be damaged. Perhaps, Willie said noncommittally. I think it would be best if the city lord could investigate this. At the same time, Wang Yu received a system notification. You have triggered the hidden Castellan quest, Dangerous Wall. Quest rank, none. Do you accept? Castellan quests were unique to the city lord and the highest leader of the administrative area. The rewards for these quests were mostly the honor and reputation of the main city. Under normal circumstances, it could not be refused because if it was refused, the prestige of the main city's citizens would drop. When the prestige of the main city dropped to a certain level, there was a possibility that the citizen NPCs would riot. Not to mention that Wang Yu was a city lord with a heavy responsibility. Even if he was just a commoner, he could not give up on a quest. Except, Wang Yu did not hesitate to press confirm. System notification. You have accepted the hidden Castellan quest, Dangerous Wall. Quest rank, none. Quest requirement. Go to the West City Dangerous Wall and investigate the truth behind the wall. Quest notification. This is a special quest. If you give up or refuse to accept the quest, your reputation as the city lord will be reduced to 0. As expected, the system was as annoying as ever. It never told you that this was a quest that you had to complete, but if you dared to give up or refuse to accept it, the consequences would be unbearable. After leaving the city lord's mansion, Wang Yu jogged all the way to the West City. The West City was the administrative area of Finger in the Heavens. The construction of the city was closely related to the hard work and contributions of the guild players. Although Finger in the Heavens was not as large as Blood Alliance, they were rich. With the nature of Lungting Corporation, as long as they had money, they would be more efficient than others. With Finger in the Heavens spending a lot of money, the West City was currently the fastest developing and most luxurious city in Yuhuicheng. The prestige of the guild leader, Don't Shoot, was not much lower than Wang Yu's. Following the coordinates given by the system, Wang Yu quickly arrived at the dangerous wall that Willie had mentioned. Yuhuicheng's city wall was tall and sturdy. However, this part of the city wall seemed to have gone through something. The cracks between the bricks of the city wall had completely cracked, and it looked like it was about to collapse. Whoosh! Wang Yu was just about to get closer to take a look when an arrow suddenly flew over from the darkness. Wang Yu tilted his body slightly, and the arrow missed. At this time, a group of players jumped out from their hiding spots near the dangerous wall. At the same time, a tall player said excitedly, "Kid, don't run." "Damn, I've waited for a day. I finally." Huh? The kid was excited, but when he saw Wang Yu's face, he was instantly stunned. Scumbag. Oh no, aren't City Lord? Oh. Wang Yu turned around and looked at the tall player. He smiled and said, "Big Bear, so it's you." This tall player wasn't a stranger to Wang Yu. He was the number 2 character of Finger Heaven, Big Bear Wait for Me. Wang Yu normally didn't like to remember people's names. Many experts who didn't have too many characteristics would forget after a glance. The reason why he had an impression of this kid wasn't because of his ID, but because this kid had once said that he wanted to destroy Chuanjin in front of Wang Yu. Such an arrogant and reckless guy, Wang Yu naturally had a deep impression of him. It's me. Big Bear Wait for Me was protected by thousands of people, but Wang Yu crushed my head. I still have a shadow in my heart. This kid was guarding here to wait for the real culprit who destroyed the city wall. Now that he saw Wang Yu here, there was no need to mention how hopeless he felt. He even stuttered when he spoke. Meow. If this guy was the real culprit who destroyed the city wall, then this time's quest would probably end here. However, in the end, he was still the second in command of a big guild. With so many brothers watching, he wouldn't be afraid. Big Bear Wait for Me gathered up his courage and asked, "City Lord Iron, What are you playing here? Chapter 13-14. After staying with Chuanjin for so long, Wang Yu was no longer that innocent young man. From the behavior of Big Bear and the others just now, it was not difficult to see that this group of people were investigating the secret of the dangerous wall. Big Bear and the others were very vigilant. Wang Yu could naturally feel Big Bear's nervousness. Sword in the Heavens was definitely responsible for the destruction of such a big city wall in the Western District. This might be the same quest. It's nothing, Wang Yu said calmly. I just walked around and saw that there was something wrong with the wall. Why? As the Castellan of Yu Hui Cheng, can't I walk around the Western District? No, no, no. Big Bear and the others were happy when they heard Wang Yu's words. Then they hurriedly said, of course you can go wherever you want. That's good. Wang Yu nodded in satisfaction. Then, what happened to the wall? Seeing that Wang Yu was not the real culprit who destroyed the wall, Big Bear and the others were relieved. Their vigilance towards Wang Yu was completely gone. Since they were not his opponent, they could not wait to curry favor with him. Moreover, Wang Yu took the initiative to ask. Of course, they would tell him everything they knew. I won't hide it from you. Big Bear sighed. It became like this when we entered the game today. Our boss received a quest to investigate the cause within 3 days. So, we are here to observe and see what is going on. Hearing Big Bear and the others' words, Wang Yu was stunned. Is this how you investigate? How do you investigate? Big Bear and the others said helplessly. The wall is already like this. We don't have any clues at all. We can only wait here. I heard that the culprit will return to the scene after committing the crime. So we thought. Speaking up to this point, Big Bear and the others raised their head and looked at Wang Yu. They did not continue. The culprit will return to the scene after committing the crime? There's actually such nonsense logic. Wang Yu looked at Big Bear and Wait for Me in front of him, and his gaze became more severe. Clearly, according to Big Bear Wait for Me, this brat wanted to kill all the players that got close to this wall. Before Wang Yu arrived, who knew how many people he had killed? Wang Yu wasn't a saint. And, as a hands-off boss, he definitely wouldn't love the people like his own children. However, Wang Yu couldn't bear to watch Big Bear and the others willfully slaughtering the innocent for the sake of his own mission. In the past, Wang Yu had only thought that this brat was arrogant, but who would have thought that this fellow's heart was not in the right place? Of course, since Wang Yu didn't see Big Bear kill someone with his own eyes, if he killed him now, then he would be no different from this brat. So, Wang Yu coldly glared at Big Bear and said, all right, this is none of your business. City Lord Tai, what do you mean by this? Hearing Wang Yu's words, Big Bear Wait for Me didn't understand. Wang Yu coldly said, what I mean is, right now, the city wall mission has nothing to do with you. Go back. This, Big Bear Wait for Me, was immediately dumbfounded and said in surprise, Boss Iron Ox, this is our mission. I know. Now it's my mission. Wang Yu's tone was indifferent, as if he was saying something very normal. His attitude was so strong that Big Bear Wait for Me couldn't react. Why? Seeing Wang Yu forcefully snatch the mission, this time, the other players behind Big Bear Wait for Me couldn't sit still. Sword Points to the Heavens could be considered as the #1 guild in Yu Hui Cheng, especially in this West District. It was always them who snatched other people's missions, and no one else had ever snatched it. Now that they heard Wang Yu say this, how could they endure it? Wang Yu glanced at everyone and said, it's very simple, because I'm a city lord. F***CK. Everyone was furious. This was a F***king game. The city lord was nothing. Even if the president came, he would have to rely on his fists. This group of players were all newbies, and had never experienced the era where Sword Points to the Heavens and Chuanjin were enemies. Although they knew of Wang Yu's name, and saw Wang Yu's performance in the Pro League, in the end, Wang Yu was only one person. What was so amazing about one person? Could it be that he could fight dozens of people? From a start, these people were dissatisfied with Wang Yu's attitude, but seeing that their boss was so submissive, they didn't dare to show it. Now that Wang Yu's attitude was so savage, it immediately angered them. Some people even pointed their weapons at Wang Yu, and angrily suggested to Big Bear Wait, "Boss, if we attack together, we might not be his match. Young people don't know life from death. F***CK." Hearing this kid's words, Big Bear Wait's soul almost flew out of his body. Meow. Others didn't know how powerful Wang Yu was, but Big Bear had definitely experienced it himself. Back then, Sword Points to the Heavens had 3,000 elite players and a team of professional players surrounding him, but they still couldn't stop this kid. Big Bear Wait's head was cut off. Now, these dozens of small fries dared to say such words. Weren't they looking for death? In panic, Big Bear Wait carefully looked at Wang Yu's expression. Seeing that Wang Yu didn't care about his subordinates' words, Big Bear Wait hurriedly said, "We'll leave now. Leave now." Saying that, Big Bear Wait called out to everyone, turned around, and left. Big Bear knew a little about Wang Yu's temper. It didn't matter if he was arrogant with his words, but now that he had made things clear, if he dared to say half a word, he would probably be immediately asked to leave, and his ending would definitely be much worse than scramming. Seeing that their boss had left, the others also followed unwillingly. Looking at the back view of Big Bear Wait's group leaving, Wang Yu coldly snorted in disdain. He wanted to take the opportunity to teach this kid a lesson, but he didn't expect this guy to be so tactful. As expected, he was a coward who bullied the weak and feared the strong. After Big Bear Wait's group left, Wang Yu quickly came to the bottom of the city wall and began to carefully observe. No wonder Big Bear Wait's group couldn't find any clues and could only hide here. Wang Yu carefully observed for a long time, but didn't find anything wrong. Such a large section of the West City Wall was safe and sound, and only this section was badly damaged. It was definitely unreliable to say that it had been in disrepair for a long time. However, Wang Yu wasn't a professional mason, and no matter how he looked, he couldn't see what was wrong. "Don't tell me I also have to hide here and wait for people," Wang Yu gloomily muttered, then opened the guild channel and shouted in the channel, "Wuji, quickly come to the West City. If you don't have enough brains, ask Wuji, and if you don't have enough strength, find Wang Yu." This was the current consensus of everyone in Xuanzhen. Since we can't find any clues, then we can only call for Wuji's help. Chapter 13-15. After arriving at the west side of the city, Wuji saw Wang Yu squatting at the foot of the wall. Look at where he is squatting. It doesn't look like something someone of his age can do. Wuji walked to Wang Yu's side with black lines on his forehead. He kicked her and said, "What's the matter? Why are you so anxious to ask me to come over?" Wang Yu turned around and pointed at the wall behind him. "Do you see this wall? What's wrong with the wall?" Wuji didn't understand. Wang Yu shared his mission and said, "The mission I took just now is to investigate why this wall became like this. You read a lot. Why don't you take a look at what's going on?" Damn, Wuji was speechless. What does this have to do with reading a lot? I'm not a professional mason. How can I tell how this wall became like this? What we do now? We can't just squat here forever. Seeing that Wuji couldn't do anything, Wang Yu was helpless. He had done so many missions, but he had never seen such a strenuous one. It would be easier for Wang Yu to kill a boss. That's easy. Wuji looked at the wall and looked at the description in the mission panel. He smiled and said, "Although I'm not a professional, let's find a professional." Professional? Wang Yu was confused. Should we find Brother Chun? Chun Xiang, as a senior civil engineer, should be familiar with building walls. It's useless to find him. Wuji shook his head. Knowledge is different from your kung fu. There are still some differences between the common sense of the real world and the game world. Indeed, the game world was a virtual fantasy world. There would definitely be a huge difference from reality. For example, players in the game world could easily summon a fire elemental, but in reality, no one could summon it. Similarly, there must be a reason why Yu Huiqing's city wall had changed so strangely. In reality, it was just an unexplainable reason. Even if Chun Xiang came here, he probably wouldn't be able to find any clues. Otherwise, with sword points to the sky, he didn't believe that he wouldn't be able to find a few civil engineering students carrying bricks. Then who are we looking for? Wang Yu asked blankly. Wuji pointed at the city wall and said, "This city wall is built in the European style. Most European buildings are made of stone. As for why the city wall became like this, we have to find a stonemason in the game. However, I don't think Yu Huicheng has such a profession." There were two types of normal NPCs. One was the commoner NPCs, and the other was the professional NPCs with classes. Most of the professional NPCs in the city were blacksmiths and tailors, existences that were closely related to the players' daily lives. Wuji had never heard of a stonemason before. After all, even in this era, no one would carry a stoneware to kill people. A stonemason in the game? However, the listener was more interested. After hearing Wuji's words, Wang Yu seemed to have thought of something. He took out a stone tablet and displayed its attributes, saying, "Yu Huicheng, I think there's a stonemason called Arthur. Have you heard of him?" "A stonemason called Arthur?" "No." Wuji shook his head. Wuji didn't like to wander around the city. Naturally, he wouldn't care about the names of NPCs. It was reasonable that he hadn't heard of the name Arthur. Seeing Wuji shake his head, Wang Yu hurriedly opened the guild channel and asked, "Does anyone know about this NPC called Arthur?" "Everyone. I know, as expected of a professional roaming the streets to take advantage of others." As soon as Wang Yu's question was thrown out, Ming Jian Daoxue replied, "Yu Huicheng, there are a total of 13 NPCs called Arthur. Which one are you looking for?" The name Arthur was too common. If translated into Chinese, it would be Li Ergo, Zhang Erdan, Iron Ox Wang, and so on. A brick could hit a few of them. Who would have thought that the small Yu Huicheng would have as many as 13? "I'm looking for an Arthur who's a stonemason," Wang Yu replied. "Then there's none," Ming Jian Daoxue said helplessly. "Of these 13 Arthur, 12 are commoner NPCs. The other one is buying fruits on the street. None of them are stonemasons." "Ah." Hearing Ming Jian Daoxue's reply, Wang Yu's face was gloomy. He had finally found a clue, but it was cut off. How unlucky was he? However, at that moment, Wuji suddenly said, "I don't know which era this stone slab of yours is from. Even if there's an Arthur, it's probably from who knows how long ago." "You're right." Wang Yu rubbed his chin and said, "Then what should we do now?" "Hee hee." Wuji laughed and said, "Since this old Arthur used to be Yu Huicheng's man, then we should look for a knowledgeable person to ask." "A knowledgeable person, you mean?" With Wuji's reminder, Wang Yu was slightly stunned. A cold face suddenly popped up in his mind. Wuji nodded. "That's right. It's our Yu Huicheng's librarian, Sai." Wang Yu sighed. "Looks like we can only go to the library." To be honest, unless it was absolutely necessary, Wang Yu really didn't want to go to the library and try his luck. Damn, although the librarian knew a lot, he was also a scammer. It was fine if he asked for money, but the key was that he didn't ask the right questions even if he paid for them. He might not even get anything out of them. With Wang Yu's net worth, it wasn't like he couldn't afford a few hundred gold coins. However, the other party was clearly going to rip him off. If he still couldn't wait to go forward, then he would be a typical idiot with too much money. Of course, with Wuji around, Wang Yu was also much more at ease. This kid had never suffered a loss from the librarian before. The library was in the Mage Academy on the Central Street. After deciding to ask the librarian, Wang Yu and Lin Sanju walked straight in the direction of the Mage Academy. At that moment, the figure of an assassin appeared in the distance. Looking at the backs of Wang Yu and Lin Sanju leaving, the assassin sent a message. "Big Boss Xiong, that guy left with a priest." "Left?" Big Boss Xiong asked in surprise. "What does that priest look like?" The assassin thought for a moment and said, "Quite fair, but I don't know why, but when I saw that face, I wanted to stab him twice." "Was it an illusion?" "It's not an illusion," Big Boss Xiong said. "If I'm not wrong, that priest is the leader of the hoodlums in Xuanzhen, Wuji. So he's the legendary Wuji. No wonder." Hearing this, the assassin suddenly realized why he couldn't control himself when he saw that face. It turned out that he had met the leader of the #1 scum in the world, Xuanzhen. At the same time, Big Boss Xiong, who was far away, also began to let his imagination run wild. He knew about Wuji. No matter how much Big Boss Xiong despised Wuji's character, He had to admit that this guy had always been very smart. Since Wang Yu had asked him to come, he must have his own reasons. Now that the two of them had left, it must be related to this mission. Thinking of this, Big Boss Xiong opened the message window and replied to the assassin. Follow them. Remember, don't get too close. Make sure they're within your field of vision. Yes, I understand. The assassin replied and turned invisible again. Chapter 13:16. Yu Huicheng was not very big, and the West District was not far from the Mage Academy. It did not take long for Wang Yu and Wu Ji to arrive at the library. The librarian was sitting at the door, his expression unchanged, as if he would scam you to death if you asked me again. Wang Yu did not dare to provoke this guy, so he poked Wu Ji, who was beside him. Wu Ji walked to the librarian with a smirk, took out a bag of money, and handed it to him. Please tell me where Arthur is. The librarian looked at the bag of money and raised his eyebrows. Which one? Hee. Wu Ji smiled faintly and stretched out his hand. The librarian was slightly stunned and reluctantly put the bag of money in Wu Ji's hand. Damn, that works. Wang Yu was stunned. As expected of the scumbag of scumbags, he could even scam the librarian for money. The passers-by even prostrated themselves on the ground in worship. With the help of the forum, Easter eggs in the game spread very quickly. The librarian's role was no longer a secret, but everyone knew how scary the librarian was. This guy was famous for asking for money. As long as someone dared to ask him, he would take money. If they did not pay, the system would forcefully deduct it. He was known as a piggy bank, and it was difficult for normal players to ask a question in a few words. He did not expect to see someone asking for money from him today. What kind of godlike operation was this? The assassin who had been watching Wang Yu and Wu Ji from afar was also dumbfounded when he saw this scene. After a long time, he replied to Big Brother Bear. Boss, you have no idea what I saw. They came to the library and asked the librarian a question, and the librarian actually gave them money. Big Brother Bear was stunned. Is this bullsh**? It's true, the assassin said confidently. I think the librarian is the key to this quest. That makes sense. Big Brother Bear thought for a moment and then shouted anxiously, Wait for me. I will be there soon. While Mr. Assassin was talking to Big Brother Bear and the others, Wu Ji told the librarian, Yu Huicheng's old stonemason, Arthur. No, the librarian replied without a second thought. No, you must be mistaken. It's clearly written on this stone slab. Hearing the librarian's words, Wang Yu unhappily took out the slate and was about to question the librarian. Don't panic. Wu Ji extended his staff and calmly stopped Wang Yu. He said that there are no coordinates, not that there is no such person. It's the old stonemason, Arthur. Who knows how long he's been dead? Watch me. As he spoke, Wu Ji handed over the money bag in his hand and said, Tell me the location of Yu Huicheng's Arthur's descendant. Which one? The administrator asked again. Hee. Wu Ji once again revealed a treacherous smile. Ha! The librarian fiercely slapped his mouth and handed the money back to Wu Ji. Seeing the librarian's expression, Wu Ji said proudly, The one who is a stonemason and is in Yu Huicheng. You're beating around the bush. You should have just asked Yu Huicheng where the stonemason is. Wang Yu couldn't help but complain. Wu Ji weighed the money bag in his hand and said, You don't understand. No matter how small a fly is, it's still meat. Wang Yu, 42 South Street. Seeing that the money in his hand was cheated away by Wu Ji twice, the librarian was extremely depressed. Feeling extremely unhappy, he gave Wu Ji the coordinates. Let's go. After getting the coordinates, Wu Ji snapped his fingers and walked out of the library. Just as the two reached the door, Wang Yu suddenly stopped and pointed to a corner. Don't blame me if you continue to follow us. Yeah. When the surrounding players heard Wang Yu's words, they were dumbfounded. They thought to themselves, Is this kid crazy? Why is he acting cool in a corner? Bullying a corner and not retaliating? However, just as Wang Yu left, an assassin appeared. His neck and forehead were covered in a layer of cold sweat. Wang Yu was Yu Huicheng's castellan. All the guards in the city were under his command. Killing someone in the safe zone was definitely not a problem. Killing someone out of Yu Huicheng was just a matter of words. Not long after Wang Yu and Wang Yu left, Big Beardy and the rest rushed into the library with a group of people. They walked directly to the librarian and shouted, "Why is the west wall suddenly damaged? What's going on?" The librarian was in a bad mood. Seeing Big Beardy and the rest's impolite behavior, he naturally couldn't tolerate it. He stretched out his hand and rubbed his fingers, making a gesture to ask for money. Big Beardy had minus 200 gold coins in his pocket. Big Beardy didn't find it strange. He held his breath and listened attentively to the librarian's words. However, after the librarian took the money, he said, "I don't know." Big Beardy was furious. He slammed the table and said angrily, "Are you messing with me?" "Minus 200 gold coins," the librarian nodded. "Yes." Big Beardy had a bad temper. He pulled out his sword and was about to cut people. The librarian sneered, "You probably don't know what will happen if you attack me." "What will happen?" Big Beardy was stunned. "Minus 200 gold coins." Being chased by the guards in the city. The librarian's tone was very light. Big Beardy was like an ant in front of him. Big Beardy also knew how strong the guards were. Being chased by them was definitely not a good thing. Hearing the librarian's words, Big Beardy immediately calmed down and hurriedly said with a cheeky smile, "Did Castellan Iron come here just now?" "Minus 200 gold coins, yes," the librarian said. What questions did he ask? It seemed that Big Beardy was quite smart. He knew where to start. However, after being tricked by Wuji twice, the librarian's IQ had also evolved a lot. He said indifferently. He asked 2 questions.